family.
We're about to go live.
Great.
Everyone, we're about to go live.
Okay.
We're about to go
Stay
live.
safe.
Yes, we're about to go live.
Okay,
Mayor, we
one
are
more
currently
time.
live.
Oh, we are?
We are
Okay.
currently live.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the city of San Fernando. Let's see. City Council and Successor Agency to the San Fernando Redevelopment Agency regular meeting tonight. And at this time, City Clerk, would you conduct roll call?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'm looking for Councilmember Celeste Rodriguez, and I understand she is absent this evening. Councilmember Hector A. Pacheco.
Present.
Councilmember Cindy Montanez.
Present.
Vice Mayor Mary Mendoza.
Present.
Mayor Sylvia Ballin.
Present. We have a quorum.
I just wanted to, Councilmember Rodriguez notified staff that she is not feeling well tonight and will not be participating.
Thank you very much. Madam City Clerk, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
It would be my pleasure. Would everyone stand, please? Right hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. At this time, I'm asking for approval of the agenda. However, I would like to move item 10 to be heard before the public hearing. With that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a
I'll
second?
that.
A roll call, please.
Councilmember Rodriguez, absent. Councilmember Pacheco.
I'm sorry, Clerk and Mayor, could you clarify what the motion was? I don't think I heard it as in regards to agenda item number 10.
I'm asking that we move agenda item 10 before we hear the public hearing.
Okay, could I ask for more? So there's not going to be a public hearing for item number 10?
Yes, we're going to hear item
that the-
10 first. We'll hear item 10 first, and then we will hear the public hearing. I'm moving agenda item 10 before the public hearing. That's the motion.
Okay, I'm a no.
Okay. And who's next?
Okay. Councilmember Montanez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mendoza.
Yes.
Mayor Ballin.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, the item on the agenda is presentations. Mr. City Manager, can you please introduce the first presentation?
Yes, I believe we have Mr. Christopher Moore, who I'm not sure I see yet, joining us. Oh, there he is. I'll wait till his audio gets connected so that he can hear us. Perfect. So we have Mr. Christopher Moore, who's the local government liaison from the California Public Utilities Commission that wanted to provide the city and residents with some updates on some of the CPUC available utility resources. So thank you for joining us tonight, Mr. Moore, and please go ahead and give us a brief presentation on your resources available for residents.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much for having me. Let's pull up, okay, if I share my screen here, will people be able to see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So yeah, thank you for having me tonight. My name is Christopher Moore. I'm a local government and community liaison with the California Public Utilities Commission. We're a state agency and we're commonly referred to as either the CPUC or CPUC. I represent a territory and am tasked with working with local governments and community-based organizations in that area. I'm part of a small team that's out of our executive division. We basically have the state divided up, and I work with LA County Supervisorial District 3, then up the Central Coast to San Luis Obispo County. The agency itself is admittedly perhaps a somewhat obscure agency. I personally didn't know, even though I was born and raised in California, I didn't know much about the agency until I started working for it. We came out of the progressive era with a lot of other sort of like attempts to fix sort of Gilded Age excesses. So we were an attempt to rein in the power of the Southern Pacific Railroad. At the time, the railroad was so powerful that the way it would determine the rate that a farmer would pay to get to market is that they'd actually ask to take a look at their books first and then set it based on what they could pay. Our authority was soon expanded to include other investor-owned monopolies in the energy, water, and telecommunications sector. And that authority sort of evolved over the years as these sectors have evolved, as well as sort of public priorities. So we no longer handle set rates for rail freight because there's sufficient competition from trucking. And we still have some role with safety and crossings, which I know that it has been an issue in the city of San Fernando. Energy sector rates are significant and currently an area of concern, but we also have substantial responsibilities now regarding state climate goals, as well as regulating climate risk or wildfire risk and public health risk that arise from public safety power shutoffs from electric utilities. In our recent history, we've gained oversight over transportation network companies such as Uber and Lyft, and given up our oversight authority over household goods movers and hot air balloon charter companies. This past year, the agency's been quite busy. There were several high-profile decisions around COVID-19 customer protections, preventing shutoffs, and also now we have an eye ahead of what will happen. There's a huge amount of consumer utility debt, and what will happen when those moratoriums for cutoffs expire and people start to trying to make sure that there isn't a wave of disconnections. We now are requiring 72-hour battery backup and resiliency plans from wireless providers after a lot of big outages during 2019. We've expanded the universal telephone service program known as Lifeline to their higher mobile data allowances and subsidies for voice over internet. We've continued to push state renewable goals. So we're now on the path for 60% generation of renewables by 2035. And we put in measures to support the interconnection and commercialization of microgrids, which are basically little portions of the grid that can island and run on their own when the rest of the grid is down, so to make communities more resilient during wildfires and public safety power shutoffs. There's also new programs for batteries to help people who are vulnerable and when they lose power. This year, there's gonna be a lot of focus, and we just had earlier today, we had a hearing on Southern California Edison's public safety power shutoff practices. Simi Valley, particularly, and then Santa Clarita have had a lot of outages from SCE. It's a major area of concern. We expect this will be addressed in this year. We should be able to get it markedly better. PG&E had similar issues in 2019. And after intense scrutiny from the commission, did markedly better this last year. We're currently building a utility pole database, which sounds somewhat dull, but it is important for making sure that people can get services connected up, even things such as broadband. We're moving forward with transportation electrification, so making sure that people can charge at home, and then also making sure that the heavier fleet can be electrified too, which has big implications for air quality locally. And we're looking into further customer protections for solar customers, as well as improving the security of the grid. We're also going to be looking into building electrification and whether ratepayer dollars should be going towards that. Decisions will be made by our 5 commissioners. They're all appointed by the governor in staggered terms. And we have a sort of a funny decision making. And partly, I think a large part why my job exists is it's sometimes difficult to make sense exactly how we make decisions. Sometimes we look a little bit more like the legislature and have a lot of open debate. Sometimes we look a little bit more like a court case when we're going to potentially fine a utility. We have a judge sitting in, and we go through a proceeding and may have evidentiary hearings and the like. I'm here to help you navigate that. So if there's an issue of concern that we have either under active consideration or may come up with active consideration in the future, I can help the city engage with that. I can also help the city connect with other cities. Sometimes it takes a lot of resources to really sit through all the hearings and participate all the way. So a lot of times cities work together. We're seeing a lot that on the public safety power shutoff issue locally. And when it comes to issues such as broadband and the like, we have regional consortiums where cities work together and look at applying for grants and the like. So, you know, I'm here as a resource. I know there's issues. I know broadbands of interest. I've already connected one of your council members with the Pacific Coast Broadband Consortium. I understand that the city sometimes looks out to cities such as Oxnard and Ventura and the like for perhaps models that can be useful for it. If you have concerns about what's, you know, SCE's practices, their wildfire management stuff has led to some disruption recently. I'm here to help. And also whenever there's issues with rail crossings and the like, you know, just don't hesitate to let me know. So yeah, so thank you for your time today. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Councilmember Martinez?
Well, thank you, Christopher, for already being like a great resource and understanding like some of the priorities that we have in the city, like trying to look at broadband and really expanding it for all of our residents and businesses. So appreciate, the connections and like the information that you are providing us as a city. And then just, putting it on your, on your kind of like just making you aware that we are interested. I mean, we were just a couple council meetings talked about more like self-generation and batteries, right? And so any funding resources that you're aware of, especially for disadvantaged communities that are interested in doing more of that self-generation and like, installment of batteries, we have a big interest in that. The electrification is clearly something that we are pushing for strongly, and looking at also like funding opportunities for lower income disadvantaged communities on vehicles, and of course like our fleets and just the actual just infrastructure to continue to allow for like just electrical like charging, and and just overall, I mean the vegetation management, I think, is important, because it does from Edison and other, obviously you don't regulate the, LA Department of Water and Power, but wildfires surrounding the valley have been a critical issue, as you know. And so making sure that, that we don't continue to we have faced with Edison, some just power outages because of just the need to better manage and maintain their transmissions or transformers like clean. So any issues like that we have, I mean, it's great to be able to know you, connect with you, and be able to work with you on that when we need the assistance from the PUC. But thank you to you and the commissioners. You've got obviously a great commission there, and so we just appreciate having you as a direct contact to the PUC.
We do have some an equity program for disadvantaged communities for self-generation, which I could follow up with some information for that.
Yes.
But yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me today, and I'll just keep you keep you in the loop. It's always good to know what you're interested in, because I can give you a heads up when when decisions are coming.
Great, thank you.
All right.
Councilmember Pacheco?
Thank you for the presentation. Just echoing the sentiments from before, I think, our council and definitely our community is really committed to lessening our carbon footprint, going forward. I think that's something that California has been a bit of a leader on. And I think it's incumbent on us to continue, pushing for these lofty goals of zero emissions, generating more power through solar, using solar energy and batteries and so forth. And as I'm sure you know, these issues all impact things that are very important here in San Fernando, like our poor air quality, right? Something that affects large parts of California during summer. I think, this past summer during the wildfires, it was really intolerable even to go outside. So I appreciate this type of forward-looking sentiment. Definitely, look forward to working with you closer, hand in hand, as we go forward. And just know that, the city of San Fernando stands committed to doing our part to combat climate change, to lessen our emissions, and really create more of our energy from clean sources. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor? You're on mute, Vice Mayor.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Moore, for your presentation and all the information you've provided us with, and for making yourself available to us. Thank you. I have no questions.
Thank you very much. And Chris, looking forward to you coming back in about 6 months and giving us an update as to what's going on. Very good information today, and I want to thank you on behalf of the City Council.
Yeah, thank you, and I look forward to returning and talking to you again.
Thank you so much. At this time on the agenda is decorum and order. Mr. Attorney, can you please read the decorum and order? And after you are done, our interpreter will also read decorum and order in Spanish. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the decorum and order admonition. The City Council, elected by the public, must be free to discuss issues confronting the city in an orderly environment. Public members attending City Council meetings shall observe the same rules of order and decorum applicable to the City Council as set forth in the San Fernando Procedural Manual. Any person making impertinent, derogatory, or slanderous remarks, or who becomes boisterous while addressing the City Council or while attending the City Council meeting may be removed from the room if the presiding officer so directs the Sergeant of Arms, and such person may be barred from further audience before the City Council. That concludes the reading, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And the interpreter?
El Consejo Municipal, elegido por el público, debe tener la libertad de discutir los problemas que enfrenta la ciudad en un ambiente ordenado. Los miembros del público que asistan a las reuniones del Consejo Municipal deberán observar las mismas reglas de orden y decoro aplicables al Consejo Municipal, tal como se establecen en el Manual de Procedimientos de la Ciudad de San Fernando. Cualquier persona que haga comentarios despectivos o calumniosos, impertinentes o que se vuelva bulliciosa mientras se esté dirigiendo al Consejo Municipal o mientras asista a la reunión del Consejo Municipal puede ser sacada de la sala si el oficial que preside así lo indica al sargento. Y se puede excluir a dicha persona de seguir asistiendo a la audiencia ante el Consejo Municipal.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is public comments. Madam City Clerk, are there any public statements submitted for this evening?
Yes, Mayor Ballin and council members, there are public statements that have been submitted, which I shall read. Please keep in mind for the audience that is watching, we do have a public hearing this evening, and should you have a comment on public hearing, those comments will be read during the public hearing session. If I see any public comments, I know that there are many members of the community that is on hold right now. As I go through the list for you community members to speak, I will announce the last 4 digits of your telephone number, and that way you will know that your turn is up. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and read the public statements written that I've received. Good evening, City Council. I, Liana Stepania, the manager of San Fernando Library, would like to provide you with a few library updates. We continue providing sidewalk pickup, wireless printing, and laptop/hotspot loan services for our community. We also offer Work Ready program, which allows our customers to check out a laptop hotspot from the library and participate in virtual sessions designed to help customers find a job. Additionally, in March and April, we will be offering Read Together kits for children and teens to borrow, use, and enjoy. The take-home kits were super popular during the winter break, therefore we decided to offer a similar service. We also have many online services that can be accessed through our website. For more information, please follow us on Facebook, visit us at lacountylibrary.org. Thank you, Liana Stepani. And I am going to have to put the timer for the next comment on. We have 3 minutes for public statements, so I'm starting the timer now. My name is Darlene Lilly. I am a retiree of MWD. I was employed from 1987 through 2011 when I was forced to retire because of my treatment. I understand that several women have filed complaints about how they were treated at MWD. This is not new and has been going on for years. For several years, I was denied promotional transfers while employed in the finance department, even though I would score high on job tests and interviews, but was denied the job because I had to have permission/approval from the finance controller to leave the department. The finance controller would deny the transfer or promotion of women and minorities. I filed a grievance with HR and the union. Once I finally got the finance controller to allow me to be transferred, I was told by several managers that I was not a good fit for their department, and I still do not know what that means. I was trying to work for MWD, not be their friend. It wasn't until I met Sylvia Ballin and Rita Mendoza when they were interviewing for a position. I told them about not being able to get out of finance and not being the right fit for other departments. They took a chance with me and we became friends. I was harassed for almost 2 years by my female supervisor. I had filed numerous grievances on this supervisor with HR and unions to no prevail. This supervisor wanted to be part of my personal life, wanted to hang out after work and weekends, raised her shirt and showed me her scar from surgery, asked me several times to quit working because she couldn't stand to look at me, wanted to know medical issues, etc. I was told that I couldn't be harassed because I was an African American and women don't harass other women. After I went to legal and threatened to sue MWD, I was transferred. This female supervisor went on and harassed another African American woman. She too was transferred. Nothing happened to the supervisor. I worked facility where I was promised a promotion if I go to the mailroom and get it back in order. I worked in the mailroom for a year. I received verbal and written compliments from management regarding my work in the mailroom. After a year, my male supervisor promoted the woman that I had replaced in the mailroom and told me he would get me the next time. I requested a transfer. I worked right away department. Again, I was told by my supervisor that if I get my degree and learn different job duties, that he would promote me. I graduated with honors and my supervisor took me out to celebrate my achievement. He told me numerous times how great I was doing. When it came time for promotion, I was told that his supervisor wanted to promote a gentleman from the mailroom who has a high school diploma and no knowledge of our department. When my supervisor and I went to talk to his supervisor, I was told that he was more qualified and that I should go back to school and get a degree. He was a better fit for the department and he wanted me to train the gentleman. When I refused to train him, to punish me, they took all my duties away and told everyone not to talk to me for the next 18 months. I just sat at my desk for 9 hours and there is my timer. Okay. The next public comment we have, Mayor Ballin, Vice Mayor Mendoza, council members Montanez, Pacheco, and Rodriguez. My name is David Michalco. I am the general manager of Valencia Heights Water Company in West Covina. By appointing Adan Ortega as your representative on the board of the Metropolitan Water District, you are getting someone who feels strongly about the water systems that serve communities like San Fernando. By this, I mean water systems with less than 10,000 connections that depend on groundwater and seek to make the best use of scarce financial resources to maintain and expand water resources and infrastructure. This is what Adan does for a living, but he treats it as much more than a job. Adan has been an effective advocate for California's mutual water companies. We function as nonprofits and many date back to the 1840s with California's gained statehood. He has also forged partnerships with cities that are like San Fernando throughout California. Communities in Watsonville, Coachella, 29 Palms, and the Central Valley are gaining visibility through his efforts for a greater share of state funding and regulatory provisions that account for economic feasibility. In LA County specifically, Adan, myself, and his staff have been working with the California Department of Resources and Civic Spark to help smaller water systems with emergency planning and preparedness. Some of the pilot programs we are working on will help shape reasonable requirements that will mitigate instead of result in new costs. As a MWD director, these considerations will never be far from Adan's mind. San Fernando is unique as one of us that also has a seat on the MW board. Small water systems and those serving disadvantaged communities throughout all of Southern California will be well served by appointing Adan as your representative. Okay, next public comment we have is from Jonathan Fields. I think it's a horrible idea to appoint Adan Ortega to the Metropolitan Water District. He's a water lobbyist and supports privatization. I oppose privatizing all public goods that provide people their basic needs. Next statement by Rochelle Zelaznik, a zip code of 90064. Adan Ortega was removed as a representative on the Metropolitan Water District Board by his colleagues on the Fullerton City Council due to racist inflammatory remarks. He is a water lobbyist and privatizer, and it is a total conflict of interest for him to be serving on any water board. And the last written statement that I received, and I am again going to start my 3-minute timer. Okay, I will begin. I, Patty Lopez, oppose the appointment of Adan Ortega by the San Fernando City Council to the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California MWD Board of Directors. Agenda item 10, San Fernando City Council meeting tonight on 3/1/21 at 6 p.m. Adan Ortega was removed as a representative on the Metropolitan Water District Board by Mayor and City Council of Fullerton due to his racist, inflammatory remarks at the Upper San Gabriel Water District Board meeting on January 27, 2021. Ortega is not a resident of the city of San Fernando. Ortega does not reside in the Los Angeles County. Ortega has no history or knowledge of the needs of the residents of San Fernando. Ortega has been paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in lobbying fees to help private companies take over public systems by promoting consolidation and privatization legislation. Ortega was at the forefront of supporting SB 625, a bill that essentially wiped out an elected board of directors, disenfranchising the voice of over 2.5 million residents in LA County. He wrote a letter advocating for the destruction of Central Basin's elected board and canceling elections in March 2020. Ortega does not support open government and transparency and is not a friend of local government. Ortega has a pattern of ignoring abuse and assaults on women. He is no friend of women. Remained silent in the face of his Metropolitan Water District colleague, Robert Opadaka, physical assault on Vasquez in March 2020, and has made no comment about a legal settlement made in another Opadaka sex harassment case for $700,000. The City of San Fernando Mayor and City Council should never allow a person who operates as a consultant to represent the taxpayers on a regional board. Ortega's motive is obvious. He is using the goodwill and appointment from the hardworking citizens of San Fernando as a means to monetize his influence while sitting on a regional board. Meanwhile, since he is not an elected, he is actually accountable to no one. San Fernando residents deserve better. Okay, my timer is not off, and that is the ending of written public statements submitted. And I will allow callers to begin speaking. I do have a caller by the name of Martha Camacho Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez, do you have a public comment?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yes, I was just calling for item 10 on the appointment of Adan Ortega, and I was really concerned that you perhaps might be violating a process of open and transparent appointments. You have a large community base that could be picked, you could actually pick someone from your community, as opposed to picking an individual who has a very, very disturbing history in terms of his alliances and his behavior. So I would really ask that your council reconsider that appointment and that you open this appointment process to your actual community. You really want to have someone from your community representing your constituents and the issues around water. Mr. Ortega does not need to go back to that board. He has been involved in a lot of contentious and hostile situations where that would be a reflection on the women who are currently present on your city council. And gentlemen, for those of you that do honor civility and codes as it comes to conduct, this is not an individual you want to stamp your name to. So I would really highly consider you opening up this process to your community. Have someone from your community actually be the voice. Water is something that we all need to advocate for. The human right to water is of utmost importance. And it's so important right now as we see how many people that he's allied with are working to privatize our water. So it's super important that you not stamp his name and approve him to be the voice of your constituents because of his behavior. And two, it's sad to believe or think that you guys would ally with individuals that are working to privatize our water. And that goes against the human right to water. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller, last 4 digits of your phone number is 4018.
That you not
Admitting.
stamp his name and
Thank you.
to the voice of your constituents?
Yes.
Hello, you are on live for public comments.
Oh, okay. My name is Sherry Lee Barnes. I'm a member of AFSCME 1902 and a current employee at Metropolitan Water District for the past 15 years. I'm here to speak on item number 10. I am here this evening to thank Mayor Ballin, Adan Ortega, and Charles Trevino for continuously standing by the MWD workforce and the members of 1902. Every person deserves to work in a workplace that is free from bullying, discrimination, harassment, retaliation, and other abuses on the job. Your support, along with that of others, has given employees the courage and the confidence boost that they need to come forward and tell their stories. By doing so, we can help make the culture at MWD better and free for all persons working on the job. Again, I thank you for standing with us and for standing with all working families. Thank you.
Thank you. The next caller I have, last 4 digits is 1888, and I am admitting. Thank you. You have your public comment, please.
Hello?
Thank you. Your public comment, please.
Oh.
You're on.
Thank you. Number 10, if the plan is to remove a progressive woman, Sylvia Ballin, to make room for a lobbyist, a man who lobbies for water companies, Adan Ortega, and who lives in a completely different county, that is wrong. And why would you even consider a man who was just recently removed as a representative on the Metropolitan Water District Board by Mayor and City Council of Fullerton due to racist inflammatory remarks at the Upper San Gabriel Water District Board meeting of January 27th, 2021. Adan Ortega represents water companies he lobbies for, not the people in the district that he is asking to represent, where he does not live and has no knowledge of their needs. This should be a very easy decision. Thank you.
Thank you. The next caller I have, last 4 digits, 6966. It is now time for your public statement. Hello, caller.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, you are. You may
Hi,
begin
this
your
is-
public statement.
Hi, this is Juan Martinez from the city of Downey, and I am part of a few environmental groups like the Sunrise Movement, the Downey House Movement. Mainly, what I want to say to everyone that's going to be taking a decision today is, do not approve Dan Ortega. Dan Ortega was just recently removed from a board for his past corrupt actions. To install him back now would only prove that money runs the decisions that people like you guys make. Dan Ortega should be nowhere near power. He should not be taken seriously, especially since Dan Ortega's reputation of racism and supporting privatization water bills like SB 625, that's part of the history of what makes Dan Ortega and why he was removed priorly and why he should continue to stay away from the board. So please do your jobs. Make sure that you support the communities by making sure that water purveyors don't buy their seats back with money. I hope that is clear. I hope that everyone here knows that the environmental communities understand very well that Dan Ortega is not for the people and that his presence is harmful and only benefits the water purveyors and their greedy needs. Anyone voting to support him and bring him back on is fighting against the communities and the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller is the last four digits 1632. You are being admitted. Please state your public comment.
Anyone voting to support him and bring him back on?
Hello, sir. You're live on the meeting. Please state your public
Sure.
comment.
Hi. Hi. Sorry about that. Well, good evening, Mayor Ballin and members of the City Council. Also a special hello to Cindy Montañez. Congratulations upon your election. This is Scott Houston, and I serve as a elected board member with the West Basin Municipal Water District. And I just wanted to call to speak on item 10 and express my support for the appointment of Adan Ortega to the Metropolitan Board of Directors. He has a long career in water and leadership, and this includes even having worked at Metropolitan. And this is a very critical time for the Metropolitan Water District. In particular, they're in the midst of hiring a new general manager. If you haven't read in the press lately, there's a number of issues of concern with the employees, including sexual harassment, bullying, retaliation. And Adan and others have been leaders on this issue. So I fully support your looking at appointing Adan. And, I really respect your leadership as elected officials, as well as Mayor Ballin, who's done a great job. But, again, I support Adan, and I believe he'll be an excellent representative for you all. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next caller we have, last four digits is 5434. 5434 telephone number.
Hello.
You are able to make your public comment now.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, Mayor Ballin and council members. My name is Gina Chavez, and I'm a pump plant mechanic at the Metropolitan Water District. I'm also the first woman and first Native American Hispanic graduate from the Mechanical Apprenticeship Program, one of two women still working in their field at MWD, and more recently, one of the women that have come forward in the LA Times article to speak about the corrosive work environment under MWD executive management. As a public worker, I take my position seriously when it comes to my part in making sure that Southern California gets its water. Being an essential worker for such a precious life-giving source is important. So I'd expect the same seriousness from management and HR when I spoke up about my mistreatment. But unfortunately at MWD, you are not supported as a victim, you are punished for your truth. Victims of abuse need leaders that are willing to use their public position to help voices be heard and bring change to a toxic culture. I'm speaking tonight to item 10. I want to support Sylvia Ballin's appointment of Adon Ortega to the MWD board. In addition, I would also like to thank Sylvia Ballin, Adon Ortega, and Charles Trevino for their courage in speaking up for the victims like me. We need board members like them to continue to fight for equality for women and minorities. MWD cannot waste money for ratepayers on abusive management. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, 2159. Next caller.
Sylvia Ballin's appointment of Adon Ortega
Hello?
to the end.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please begin your public comment.
Good evening, Mayor Ballin and council members. My name is Ellen Mackey. I'm an ecologist and the chair of MWD's Ask Me 1902 Women's Caucus. We thank you for this public speaking opportunity and will be sending a copy of our comments and attachments for your archive. I'm here to speak on item number 10. I'm introducing the Women's Caucus, which became an official subcommittee of Ask Me Local 1902 on April 16, 2020. The LA Times detailed some of the Women's Caucus issues in an article on February 12, 2021. The Women's Caucus mission is to proactively address a culture of sexism, racism, misogyny, retaliation, harassment, and sexual harassment that permeates much of Metropolitan, from our offices to our field facilities. To assist you in bringing you up to speed, I'm incorporating by reference all Women's Caucus MWD board comments from July, October, November, December 2020, and February 2021, including comments by myself, Gina Chavez, Lee King, Miranda Groh, and LA Times articles from 2/12/21 and 2/20/21. For further background, in October 2020, the Women's Caucus, together with 3 board members, Sylvia Ballin, Charles Trevino, and Adon Ortega, strongly requested an independent outside investigation of the culture of abuse at MWD, not only the desert, but all facilities. We specifically stipulated a thorough, full investigation that ranged freely to include every witness and issue raised. Since then, not only were Trevino and Ortega removed, it seems this investigation itself has been compromised through interference from MWD board chair and MWD executive management, and I suggest previous speakers here underscore this. We are requesting this council send a message to the MWD board that you, 1, support an independent outside investigation that is uncompromised and without interference. 2, support the request for a state audit. And 3, support SB 331 that nullifies non-disclosure agreements, which silences MWD victims. We know that Mayor Ballin and Adon Ortega will continue to champion reforms at MWD. Adon Ortega has experience and relationships throughout the state due to his 20-plus years within the water world. As MWD faces the selection of a new general manager and increased legislative scrutiny due to workplace abuses, it's critical that San Fernando has a highly informed representative and liaison to the MWD board, someone that stands up for working families and would ensure that those who allowed these injustices against working people be held accountable and help steer MWD into the future. Therefore, we, the Women's Caucus, support Sylvia Ballin's appointment of Adon Ortega to the MWD board. In addition, I invite you to listen to an interview with Claudia Shembaugh on KUCI, Ask a Leader, from 2/23/21. You'll hear more about our experiences firsthand. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next speaker we have is last 4 digits.
Be held accountable and help steer
2770.
Therefore, we, the Women's Caucus, support Sylvia Ballin's appointment of Adon Ortega to the MWD board. In addition, I invite you to listen to an interview with Claudia Shembaugh at KUCI, Ask a Leader.
I just want to
2/23/21.
everyone
You'll
that
hear more about
Someone
our
needs to mute
Yes, so
their
we have
YouTube feed.
I just want to remind everyone the YouTube has a delay. So if you're following along on
Speaker we have is
be sure to turn down.
accountable and help steer MWD. Therefore, we, the Women's Caucus, support Sylvia Ballin's appointment of Adon Ortega to the MWD board. In addition, I invite you to listen to an interview with Claudia
City
Shembaugh.
Clerk, I think that might be your feed that's replaying.
Yeah.
No?
I don't have YouTube open.
The callers, just when you're calling in, please be sure to turn down your YouTube feed because there is a delay. So it'll stop the feedback. Go ahead, Julia.
Okay, so I will readmit. Oh, I believe that's the caller that might have a YouTube feed going on.
Can you just mute that caller?
I'm muting that caller.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
All right. The next caller.
Hi, can you hear me?
7770.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Ballin and City Council. I am here to speak on item number 10. My name is Laura Garcia, and I am an employee at the Metropolitan Water District, a public servant, and the Vice President of AFSCME Local 1902. I wanted to take this time to personally thank Mayor Ballin and former directors Adan Ortega, Charles Trevino, who initiated the independent investigation into sexual harassment, toxic work culture, and other abuses at MWD. MWD must institute structural reforms that increase oversight and ensure reports of misconduct are not brushed under the rug. A state audit is the only way to provide justice for the workers that were wronged and to ensure this type of abuse never happens again. Thank you, Mayor Ballin, for speaking truth to power when so many were willing to turn a blind eye to the injustices in our workplace. Today marks the first day in Women's History Month, and I know that Mayor Ballin and Adan Ortega will continue supporting the rights of working women to have a safe and equitable workplace. We know that Mayor Ballin and Adan Ortega will continue to champion reform at MWD. Thank you for always standing up for working families and helping us hold accountable those who allowed these racial, social, and economic injustices against working families. Water is a human right. Thank you for your time today.
Okay. Next caller we have 0903. Caller 0903. Yes, you may begin.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, hello. This is Charming Evelyn, and I am with Sierra Club. I am the chair of the Water Committee and the vice chair of the Environmental and Social Justice Committee. And this evening I'm calling about item 10. And I do want to say thank you to Mayor Sylvia Ballin, who has done a wonderful job on the Metropolitan Board. And, you know, as much as I support the victims, I'm sorry, but Mayor Ballin should not be removed and be replaced by Ortega. Absolutely not. The MWD board is 70% male. Why are we removing a woman to be replaced by another man when we are constantly speaking about JEDI, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion? And no offense on Ortega, I have nothing against him. But I do have an issue with this when you are speaking about replacing someone who lives in the community, who was elected to the city council, who represents the people of San Fernando, to be replaced by someone from a completely different community and county. How can Ortega truly represent the people of San Fernando? The electorate voted. They voted for a city council and a mayor. They should have the chance for them to choose who should represent them. It should not be someone from Fullerton. It should not be someone who was voted out by his own board. He should have had the vote of confidence to retain his seat on the MWD board on behalf of Fullerton. So I do take issue with this, and I ask the city council, please appoint someone from San Fernando to look after the city and the city's constituents. This entire thing is really a power play. There is a lot of background. It's not just about sexual harassment. It's also about a power play with the present GM and the present chair of the MWD board. There is a lot behind this. I am someone, I do attend MWD meetings, so it is not as simple as it looks on the surface. And so I will ask you, City Council, appoint someone to MWD board that will represent your constituents. That is what is needed, not someone outside of the city, outside of the county, who does not know what your constituents need. And for the victims of sexual harassment, I stand with you. And Mayor Ballin has stood with you, and she should not be replaced. Not at all, because she has done what it takes to do, and I admire Mayor Ballin very, very much. I admire the stance she takes on the MWD board, and she can definitely represent the victims and the voices of the victims. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next caller. 6430. The next caller, 6430.
Good evening, Mayor Ballin, Vice Mayor Mendoza, and members of the City Council. My name is Alan Shanahan. I am the president of AFSCME Local 1902 and AFSCME International Vice President for California. I am also a 17-year Metropolitan Water District employee, and I thank you for your time tonight. Just a couple quick points. I know there's some concerns about Adan Ortega being raised, but I want to make sure I clarify a few things. SB 625 was to clean up the corruption at Central Basin. And AFSCME Local 1902 actually organized the employees at Central Basin Water District. And the board fired all of those employees after they organized the union. So I wanted to make sure I set the record straight on that. It should be further noted that Mr. Ortega has stood up in the face of racial comments, discrimination, harassment, bullying of employees at Metropolitan Water District. For years, we have been trying to clean up and reform the agency. And we've needed directors such as Mayor Ballin, Adan Ortega, and Charles Trevino to stand up and speak truth to power. It is very hard to find this. And so while we are sad to see Mayor Ballin step down, we know Adan Ortega will continue to stand up and advocate for not only the women in the article, but all employees at Metropolitan to help bring about the much needed reform. He will also be an amazing advocate for the ratepayers in the city of San Fernando. Mr. Ortega took hard votes, stood up for the constituents at Fullerton. And yes, he was removed. And he was removed under unusual circumstances in the middle of his term. Further, the individual that replaced him, a male as well, chose not to engage in the issues that are happening right now at Metropolitan, and chose to sit back. Mr. Ortega is not afraid to seek out the truth and do what is right. And we have no doubt that he will solidly represent the residents of San Fernando in order to keep their rates low. But he will also be one of the strongest advocates on the Metropolitan Board to ensure that a proper GM is seated and that the ratepayers pay as little as they should. Thank you for your time. And Mayor Ballin, thank you very much. And the last thing I will say is thank you to Gina Chavez who called in, because that's the true bravery to come forward in the face of such a giant that's trying to silence your voice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next caller is 9999.
Yes, this is Hans Johnson. I'm president of the East Area Progressive Democrats, the largest Democratic club in Los Angeles County and in California, including members in the city of San Fernando. I'm calling tonight to express the concern of myself and our members about the prospective appointment itemized in number 10 on tonight's agenda of Adan Ortega, proposed for appointment to the Metropolitan Water District Board. We are concerned that given Mr. Ortega's history of involvement with the water industry and his service as a lobbyist on their behalf, that there may be other representatives who are more suitable for this appointment, including those from within the city of San Fernando. We would note that Mr. Ortega is a resident of Orange County, not even of Los Angeles County, which has significant representation on the board at this time. We would encourage the city of San Fernando and its decision makers to uphold the interests of San Fernando city residents by seeking eligible appointments at an open process, and to encourage in particular the consideration of women applicants for this position from among the ranks of San Fernando city residents. We will continue to keep watching this issue to ensure that we have publicly accountable water boards here in Los Angeles County and around Southern California, and we encourage efforts by the city of San Fernando and its decision makers to open up this process and to consider applicants who represent the elected interests of San Fernando decision makers and its stakeholders. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. The next caller we have, 6406. Caller 6406.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much for your time. Honorable Mayor Belen and Vice Mayor Mendoza and members of the San Fernando City Council. My name is Charles Leon. I am working for SCIU Local 721. I had the honor and privilege of working for an organization that represents 90,000 unionized employees with regions stretching from the Arizona border to Santa Barbara. And of course, it includes the wonderful city of San Fernando as well. It's an honor to speak to you tonight. I'm looking at the agenda item 10 with relation to the Metropolitan Water District Board of Directors. And I stand with the city of San Fernando, and SCIU Local 721 champions the city of San Fernando for appointing a man with a lot of experience to this board, Don Ortega, bringing to the table 30 plus years of experience and having a sound understanding of the issues with relation to water, water infrastructure, sustainable water, and improving water infrastructure. And of course, San Fernando's place with this important topic, San Fernando being a community of color and communities of color and their place with relation to this important topic of water. As we all know, SCIU Local 721 has championed racial justice issues, social justice issues, and economic justice issues. We also should know that the topic of water finds itself in that tangled web of economic justice, social justice, and racial justice. And Mr. Ortega, with his 30 plus years of experience, with him being the executive director of the California Association of Mutual Water Companies, he understands, first and foremost, how important this issue is to communities of color. He will be a strong voice for San Fernando. I stand with my sisters and brothers in the labor movement. I stand with San Fernando. We commend you tonight on the appointment of Don Ortega to the Metropolitan Board of Directors and to be a board representative and a liaison for the wonderful city of San Fernando.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Enjoy your evening. Everyone, please stay safe.
Next caller we have is 3306. 3306. I'll try in person again. Next comment we have Patty Lopez. It appears she may be having connection issues. I'll put her back in the waiting room and allow the next person, Dallas Fowler. Dallas Fowler. Looks like Patty Lopez is connected. Ms. Lopez, would you like to begin and your public statement right now?
I prefer, I wasn't prepared to read it. I just wanted express my concern and this appointee. And I would like to ask the mayor and the city members to hold on until we find out about this allegation against Mr. Ortega. I just find out at the last minute, and and we didn't have enough time to share this with the constituents here and the residents from San Fernando. So I really ask the city members to wait on this appointee. You have it in writing why we are posting. And my understanding is like, this is at the last minute. We trust you to make the right decision to appoint somebody who is already resident from the city of San Fernando, I'm not being active in the community like before in the meetings, but I'm really concerned about somebody is being appointed that is not resident. And this person, we don't know nothing about him. He never offered any trainings for the residents. The last time there was a promise from member Soto, and I know Ms. Bailin used to be representing us, but we never had the opportunity to have any input. We don't have any information. So how do you appoint somebody who is not resident and has this record? That's my big concern for all the members and the mayor, and I just asking them to hold on in this, had the opportunity to interview another resident who can qualify and will represent us. I'm really disappointed the way that they are doing right now. And that's not right. And I asked the mayor and all the city members to remember you there, to be sure that all the residents are well informed about your decision. And Mr. Ortega has a really not good record, what I see it right now. And I'm being contacted for a lot of people asking me, you know about this? And I say no. So I'm just asking you to hold on and give the opportunity to find out if he's well qualified, or you can appoint somebody else for the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Dallas Fowler, would you like to begin your public comment now?
Yes, thank you so much. Greetings. I am really disappointed in this process and seeing what's happening here. I am the founder of the California Coalition for Clean Water, and I have worked with a number of organizations around water issues for many years. And what has been happening with the privatization effort, I think it's really important for folks to understand that Adán Ortega is no hero. Yes, he has spoken out on a few issues now as it relates to the sexual harassment, but he has been in lockstep with members of the MWD board like Bob Apodaca, who has assaulted several women within MWD and Central Basin. And he has not had any issue with him whatsoever. And Bob Apodaca has even gone so far as to assault Central Basin member Leticia Vasquez on camera during a meeting. And Mr. Ortega has never had a single thing to say about that. So he is no hero. And it's really disheartening to hear members of the Women's Caucus for AFSCME and labor leaders to back someone who is not only not from San Fernando, the city of San Fernando, but not even living in Los Angeles County. The residents of San Fernando are deserving of representation from their region. And I think it's really important that we look at this in terms of conflicts of interest. Now, whether or not this body decides to go ahead and appoint Mr. Ortega back to the MWD, this is still a conflict of interest. He is a water lobbyist. He is known for doing this work for private interests. And it is really critical and imperative at this point that you all not do so, but just know, even as you do, that we will be filing public integrity complaints. Public integrity is, I think, a word that words that we have gotten too far away from. And I know I can say everything until I'm blue in the face right now. You all have already decided what decision you're going to make. But just know, as you make this decision tonight, you are voting against the interests of the people of Los Angeles, the people of Orange County, and the people of California. We do not want our water privatized. Water is a human right. Yes, there are a number of issues, and the issues that are happening with regards to sexual assault and sexual harassment are very important, and they need to be addressed. And I support any members of the MWD family who have gone through that experience. Yes, they should be addressed, and yes, they should be rooted out. But I think what has been failed to be mentioned is that the Board of Metropolitan Water District has opened the doors for audit. They are in support of an audit, and they are in support of rooting out any through any independent investigation possible, the culprits, and making sure that the individuals and victims' stories are told. So I don't know how much time I have on the clock.
Feller, your 3 minutes time is up now. Please wrap it up.
Do not appoint Adon Ortega. Thank you.
Okay, the next comment we have is from, this person is labeled call-in user 2. Thank you. It is your turn for public comment.
Hello? Oh,
yes,
no,
your turn.
This is Michael, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got disconnected from the, yeah.
All right, I will admit the next caller. Well, 3307, I'll try him again. 3307. Yes, 3307, do you have a public comment? Hello, do you have a public comment?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you can begin, please.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Muy buenas noches, Mayor Ballin, Vice Mayor Mendoza, and council members. My name is Irma Munoz, and I'm the president and founder of an environmental equity organization called Mujeres de la Tierra, which was founded 15 years ago. Hello?
Yes, we are here.
Okay. I can hear you very well.
We can hear you as well.
Oh.
Please continue your public comment, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Mujeres de la Tierra provides tools of empowerment for women and their children to lead and own their issues and speak out for things that are good for them and their neighborhood. I've been listening to the comments, and I'm very, needless to say, upset about the characterization of Mr. Ortega. I don't know if these people even know them or if they're reading talking points that were provided to them. I have known Ortega for 15 years. As a matter of fact, Adon was my board chair for 7 years, and he's been the only male on my board since he started, and he continues to be on my board. I am very picky and choosy as to who sits on the Mujeres de la Tierra board. The other thing that's bothersome to me is he's being called a racist. I mean, that seems to be the term to degrade people these days, is let's call him a racist. I'm married to an African-American male, and he doesn't treat my husband any different, doesn't talk about him. What we're talking about is a group of people who have come together and have targeted Mr. Ortega, Adon, because I've known Adon for many, many years. As a matter of fact, we had a sexual harassment claim last year, and he was the first one to provide guidance. I find Adon to be a person of integrity. I personally know him as a friend and as a professional. I also know his family very well.
I've seen the pain that he's endured as a close member of his family. A woman was subjected to sexual harassment and abuse at her place of work. For 5 years, he was anguished and feeling helplessness in dealing with the perpetrator. Helpless because he couldn't do anything about it and deal with the consequences. But he's been able to do something when he was a recent member of the Metropolitan Water District. After the meetings, he would call me and he would tell me, lady after lady, mujer after mujer, would come and talk about their abuses that they've experienced for years and years and years, and it would fall on many deaf ears. And I understand, Mayor Ballin, that you spoke up, as did he. We need people who are courageous, and maybe they don't agree with all of what we do and what we say and have different viewpoints, but this man is knowledgeable. He is a scholar on water. Why do I know that? Because I happen to be on the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board. So I'd like to wrap up my remarks by saying, please consider Adan Ortega. And for those people who want to speak out against him, know him before you do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a public comment from 3306, still waiting. That person hung up now. Okay, next one, 2634. Public comment from caller 2634. Hello, you're on live. Do you have a public comment? Okay, I will put that person back in the waiting room and move on to the next. We have caller 7388. Telephone number 7388.
Yes, hi. Can I still speak about the appointment of Adan Ortega?
Yes, you may begin your statement.
Yes, I want to oppose that. He's somebody who was already removed from the Metropolitan Water District Board of Directors by the last city he represented, where he actually, I think, lived in the city because of their questions about the nature of his service. And I think it would be very inappropriate for the city of San Fernando to put him back. The Metropolitan Water District is already causing problems for a lot of people in the northern part of the state. Up towards Nevada, they're taking the water the same way the LA DWP took the water from the Owens Valley, and I think that having somebody on that board who would approve that kind of privatization of the water that the public needs would be a very big mistake. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's try caller 2770 one last time, please. Caller 2770, telephone number.
They're on mute.
Caller 2770. Yeah, unfortunately, they have muted themselves. That is the final comment of the evening.
Okay. Thank you to all the public comments. I really appreciate it. So at this time, the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Would anyone wish to pull an item from the consent calendar? And everyone's on mute, so I'm assuming that Councilmember Montanez, did you want to pull an item from consent?
No items. I was just going to motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Rodriguez, she is absent. Councilmember Pacheco.
Aye.
Councilmember Montanez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mendoza.
Yes.
Mayor Ballin.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you very much. We are now, let me look for it, and I know we're on agenda item 10. Okay, at this moment, we are on agenda item 10, consideration to adopt a resolution appointing Adan Ortega to the Metropolitan Water District Board of Directors and approve use of the city seal and city logo for display as the City of San Fernando's board representative and liaison. council members, and community. There comes a time in each of our lives we will make a personal decision for the greater good. Today is that day for me. I decided to step down from the Metropolitan Water District Board and nominate Mr. Ortega to replace me. It was my decision solely. Why? Adon has over 30 years experience in water and has the water background and expertise our city needs. Adon has the leadership skills and wisdom the MWD board needs, particularly at this time, to ensure the best qualified general manager is hired. Adon is a proven advocate for employees. He initiated the board action for an independent investigation immediately after employees spoke about harassment during public comments at the Operations and Personnel Committee. Today is the day for me to empower Adon by representing the city of San Fernando to be part of a cultural change at Metropolitan Water District. I trust Adon. Council members, our city manager and public works director met with Adon. I'll ask them to share their views about the meeting they had with Adon, and then I'll invite Mr. Ortega to address the city council. But before I do that, I want to talk about a subject many council members of the public brought up, that Adon was removed from the Fullerton City Council. I happened to call in for public comments in support of Adon for them to reaffirm his appointment. And the reason he was removed from the Fullerton City Council is because a council member, by the way, who has no water experience, wanted to sit on the Metropolitan Water District Board. Now, I take their word for it. I take the Mayor of Fullerton's word for it, that's why Adon was removed from the Fullerton City Council. And it has nothing to do with anything Adon did wrong at all. Adon, as I said, initiated the board action for an independent investigation. Very few directors called up, spoke up. One of the women spoke at the Operations and Personnel Committee. It is heart-wrenching, heart-wrenching. If you will hear their public comments, if you will listen to that radio program, and I believe Adon is the right person to represent San Fernando for all the reasons I listed. And with that, I would like to ask the city manager to discuss his meeting with Adon.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Relatively quickly, I do, from an operating standpoint, my job is to make sure that the city of San Fernando runs as smoothly and efficiently as is possible. And in the past, I know that the MWD board is an extremely significant time commitment for all of those board members, and they all board members representing all the different MWD members do a great job. We have had staff appointed to the board in the past. Our last public works director was appointed to the board. And it is such a significant time commitment that, oftentimes he'd spend 1 or 2 days away from the office a week, dealing just solely with MWD policy issues, which really just took that staff member away from the day-to-day needs of the residents of San Fernando, which include, maintenance of our streets, making sure our waste management system is working correctly, making sure our trees are trimmed, and just all the day-to-day things that we need a public works director for. And so from that standpoint, I really do support having someone that is not necessarily a staff member, only because, again, it makes it very difficult for that person to provide the right amount of service to San Fernando, specifically when they're, spending so much time with MWD. When we met with Mr. Ortega, clearly he has a breadth of water experience. We do have a very small water system, and we expect to have a water system for many, many years to come, and have no intention of privatizing or supporting any privatization of that water system. Definitely from a staff perspective, and I'm sure from a policy perspective. I know the two things that San Fernando residents value most in this as a city government are our police and public safety and our water system, as far as assets that we have that make us different from many of our surrounding communities. So that is an effort. Privatization is not something that that San Fernando would ever support, but what we do support is having a strong voice with MWD and someone that really understands the water, what is involved with water policy and what the unique needs of a small water system like San Fernando, are. And Mr. Ortega did a really excellent job of really kind of letting us know how much experience he has in being able to quickly get that across to us and understanding all of the regulatory environment under which our water systems operate and all of the safety requirements for a water system, but also the fact that he works with a lot of small water systems and understands the challenges that we particularly have. We don't have a large management structure. We don't have a lot of people we don't have any local, any staff members that, spend a lot of time doing legislative advocacy, a lot of time getting involved on a policy level to really make sure that we're not being overcharged when we do need to use MWD water. So Mr. Ortega really expressed his desire to be that advocate for the city of San Fernando. And I think from a knowledge perspective, we were, as staff impressed with that. And from a policy perspective, I think it's really vital to have someone that is, to have someone that isn't a staff member that will give regular updates to staff, give regular updates to city council on what is going on at the MWD policy level, but does not take away from the day-to-day efficacy of city staff in serving our residents, which, when in the past, when we had staff members appointed to that board, it really had diminished that efficacy. So that was my, sort of my take in my impression of Mr. Ortega when we met with him last week. And then Mr. Baumgartner obviously knows water. He knows it very well. He deals with it on a day-to-day basis. So I think he walked away impressed with Mr. Ortega's knowledge as well. But I'll let him speak to that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kimball. One of the things that really struck me in my speaking with Mr. Ortega was his desire to make a connection with staff and actually proposed, meeting with staff on a monthly basis or even more frequent than that. And I think that's really important. It kind of shows that commitment that he has with the city, and that was quite important. He also spoke a lot about connecting us with important resources for a small water system. In particular, the way the regulatory environment develops and keeping us informed about changes in regulatory compliance. And I think that's really important for our system. Also, he spoke a great deal about technological advancements in the water industry and connecting us with those types of resources. And finally, we spoke a little bit about funding opportunities for a small system like ours as we go through expanding water treatment for our drinking water. So I was definitely left with the impression that he is very connected to the industry, but also has a strong desire to connect with staff and the city. So thank you for this opportunity to share my impressions. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Mr. Don, would you like to speak to your experience and possibly respond to some of the public comments made?
Of course. Good evening, Mayor Ballin, Vice Mayor Mendoza, and Council Members Montañez, Pacheco, and Rodriguez. I'd like to begin by recognizing my former MWD coworker and MWD board colleague and friend of 20 years, Mayor Sylvia Ballin. In the last year, you pushed me to my limits at times as we stood for the interest of small cities and the issues that affect the most vulnerable in Southern California from the policies of the Metropolitan Water District, including residents, employees, and board members. In 2020, we pushed through a COVID-19 payment deferral program for MWD member agencies whose residents are under financial stress. We reduced a staff recommended rate increase from 5% to 3% in 2021. We also struggled for 3 months as we heard about persistent allegations about management's failure to adequately address sexual harassment in remote desert facilities until November 2020, when we prevailed on the MWD board to approve an independent review using outside counsel. Some in MWD board leadership positions have told us that we have brought discredit to the agency by publicly pushing these questions of fairness. You, Director Camacho, and former Director Trevino, a majority of our colleagues and I, have taken the position that it's better to say and do something than to leave the workforce to dwell in a cloud of insecurity and potential hostility. Rules of decorum should never be used to ignore potential abuse of individuals, because that more than anything will erode public trust in our mission to bring safe and affordable drinking water to the region. MWD's workforce is the agency's most important asset because without them, a fundamental part of Southern California's infrastructure would simply not work. While my own service on the MWD board was ended mid-term in February by my city of residence, I find myself humbled that you asked me to stand before the City of San Fernando City Council for consideration as your city's representative on the MWD board. In addition to the mayor, I have known Councilwoman Montañez for over 20 years, as she previously served in the council and assembly while I worked at MWD. And we have crossed paths on regional environmental priorities in recent years, stretching from an accounting of small water systems in LA County to the Los Angeles River. I've been coming to San Fernando since my childhood years on weekend visits to my great uncle and grandfather's brother, Agapito Rudy Ochoa, and to visit my cousin Eleazar Juarez and his family who lived there many years and now live in Pacoima. I became acquainted with San Fernando's water system as it was represented by Sergio Rascon and later Hugo Mejia in the early 2000s. I toured the 5,000 connection water system as well. In the early 2000s, I worked with the Watershed Council to orchestrate funding for a stormwater augmentation study that benefited the city and the Pacoima area of Los Angeles. As a consultant, I have worked on the LA River Revitalization Master Plan, whose headwaters replenish San Fernando's groundwater basins. Recently, I helped to create an alliance of public water systems that serve disadvantaged communities around California that are similar in profile as San Fernando, which are mostly reliant on groundwater. It's known as the Community Water Systems Alliance. The California Association of Mutual Water Companies, which I manage, is their fiscal sponsor. These include communities in Watsonville, Bakersfield, Coachella, and 29 Palms who wanted to avoid starting a new association because they can't afford the full burden of running an association or hiring a lobbyist like the big cities and water districts do. I think that my life's work and the city of San Fernando are complementary. I am hopeful of contributing to the present critical work in play at Metropolitan. While it's without compensation, my service should not be described as selfless or charity, given that it is within the range of my own priorities and passion for serving small water systems, especially as we deal with the large and complex institutional and regulatory issues and costs that surround us. I believe, Mayor Ballin, that you wanted me to address some of the issues that were raised by the public.
I think it's only fair to you, Adon.
I will do that. So I warned you, Mayor, that I had my detractors and that there's a supremacist blog in Fullerton that's been hounding me since all of these questions have popped up about my prospective replacement at Metropolitan. That blog is the source of information that was organized by the PR freelancer who has represented Central Basin Director Leticia Vasquez, who finances her efforts through a lawsuit that she filed and settled for $1.4 million for bogus Brown Act claims that were never tried in court but settled by Central Basin. SB 625 that was mentioned by several callers was a bill that was introduced in order to deal with the issues of corruption at the Central Basin Municipal Water District. The bill proposed to dissolve Central Basin Municipal Water District, and it did not propose to privatize it. It proposed to transfer the public duties to another public water agency, the Water Replenishment District of Southern California. These issues are complex. I defended proudly the not-for-profit mutual water companies. What are mutual water companies? They're private, but they're owned by the community. And they are not for profit. They can only charge the cost of service. Nobody makes any money on it. And many of them are very small and serve disadvantaged community. Central Basin, for example, was taxing my members, even those that had no connections to imported water. And at the same time that they were taking money, as all of California fought a water tax at the meter, Central Basin was going into bankruptcy, building recycled water lines to nowhere that had no customers and driving the district into the ground. How come I know this? I used to work at Central Basin. I was assistant general manager at Central and West Basin when they were jointly operated. We had a marketing plan. We built pipes only when we had customers, and that was a strategy that was abandoned. So forgive me for those that are critical of me for knowing perhaps more than you would feel comfortable by me knowing. But I think that we have to defend small systems. We have to defend small systems against unfair representation. And yes, when there's bills that are trying to solve an issue of corruption, I will call it out and I will not apologize for it. And I believe that these individuals who called are simply not informed about how water works. So with all that, I am here to answer any other questions that you might have and would gladly indulge them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Montanez.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Madam Mayor, thank you for your years of service as our San Fernando's Metropolitan Water District board member. I mean, you clearly leave a legacy of pushing really hard and fighting hard for communities like San Fernando across LA and other parts of the state. So thank you for everything that you did, Madam Mayor, and for what you continue to do in your leadership in water and that statewide water leadership that you have provided. And Adan, I mean, strongly support your interest in your nomination by the mayor to be our Metropolitan Water District board member. This is going to position San Fernando, our small little city, as really, truly more of a leader at Metropolitan Water District because of your experience that goes back literally decades. I met Adan when I became a 25-year-old city council member in the city of San Fernando. I knew very little about water, and Adan was a mentor. Adan, you know, also was just a young person at Metropolitan Water District who was already considered one of the top water experts in the state of California. And Adan spent hours upon hours with me, as did Kathy Cole at Metropolitan Water District, teaching me about, you know, statewide water issues, what it meant on conveyance issues, long-term sustainability issues for Southern California. You know, we spent a lot of time in San Fernando. They spent time with me, showing me the water system, so the state water project, and how that really connected back to San Fernando and other communities like San Fernando. And like our city manager said, there are two things in San Fernando that residents will never give up. That's our independent police department and our independence in our water system. That's why we exist as a city. For those of you that may not know San Fernando's history, it's because we have our own water system. And we fought hard, and we will always fight hard to maintain our publicly owned water system. And that is something that Adan shares and has really been working with us for years. And back then, I mean, it's true what he stated when he mentions the water augmentation study that was done in the early 2000s. That's what allowed for us to do stormwater capture in the region and push for it to be a local priority for local water supply. Again, our independence is dependent on us being able to sustain our local water supply. Although we are a Metropolitan Water Agency member, we don't necessarily purchase or have to purchase Met water because of our local water supply. And what did that water augmentation study do? It allowed us to study how much water we could actually infiltrate, capture. So when we talk about San Fernando Park and our infiltration project, when we talk about potentials in Pacoima Wash, 8th Street Natural Park, and really forward-thinking, cutting-edge projects that were done in Sun Valley, that goes back to the work that Adan did with the Watershed Council and other forward-thinking groups over 20 years ago. So his knowledge of our area is outstanding. It is probably one of the individuals that I know has the greatest and most detailed knowledge of our water infrastructure in San Fernando and in the northeast part of the valley. which again, we need to remember that our groundwater basin in the Northeast San Fernando Valley, it is absolutely the most critical groundwater basin that exists for the region. And so our ability to understand groundwater cleanup issues, nitrates and others that we find in our system or could potentially find in our system, Adan understands these issues and has worked with us on groundwater cleanup issues. When we look at stormwater capture, again, we have to be able to capture water. We have to be able to infiltrate it back into our system so we can continue to remain that independent city focused on our water. And that's something that Adan understands. In terms of educating people, Adan is a board member for an initiative and has been for a long time called Water Education for Latino Leaders. So a lot of us city council members from all across the state of California who, like me at 25 years old, knew very little about water issues, we are allowed, because of the work that Adan does and the training that Adan does, for us as community members to begin to understand complex water issues. So to now have Adan be able to be part of our board, as our board member, we are all going to learn a tremendous amount of water issues, and we will be able to defend our city the way we have always defended our city on our water infrastructure projects. And Adan, that is something that a lot of us, literally hundreds upon hundreds of elected officials throughout the state of California have been trained because of the work that you've done. So I could go on about why there's absolutely no question that Adan is the right person for the city of San Fernando. And not only just for us in the city of San Fernando, he is going to represent communities like ours that are small. We're babies compared to the big, powerful powerhouses of the LA Department of Water and Power in San Diego. But we potentially have the opportunity with Adan to hold that chairmanship position. He was close to becoming chair of the Metropolitan Water District just a few months ago. So imagine now that we have the opportunity as San Fernando to truly have a powerful voice, an important role, a role and a voice that we deserve and have deserved for over 100 years to be able to push for the issues that matter to us as a city. So I strongly support Adan. He has been there for us as women. He has been there, as the mayor has explained and other people have explained. The unions are behind him for a reason, because he has defended workers and he has stood with employees when injustices have arisen. Right now, the Metropolitan Water District is about to select, or is in the process of electing a general manager. Adan will have a voice, and San Fernando will have a voice in selecting who that general manager can be. So I just want to again say, for those reasons and more, I strongly support the appointment of Adan Ortega as our Metropolitan Water District board member.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to begin my comments to also extend my thanks to you for the important and incredible work that you've done at the Metropolitan Water District over the last several years. I think it is important to underscore that it's been your decision to step down, and that that's not lost on me. And I do hear the lavish praise heaped on Mr. Ortega by my colleagues. As for me, I don't have as much praise because I don't know the guy. So allow me to introduce myself. Mr. Ortega, I'm known in the city as a tough negotiator. I ask direct questions and I appreciate frank answers. I really place a premium on integrity and honesty. And for me, I place San Fernando's interests above all. I don't carry any water for special interests. Instead, I let data and science and empathy inform my decision-making. I speak truth to power. And for me, water is life. And make no mistake to our community members that are listening, that our MWD voice is incredibly important. And this decision is an important one. So with that, I would like to begin with a few questions to staff. And then I will move to some questions to Mr. Ortega. To staff, how long is this appointment for?
So we have not in the past had specific terms, like term limits for our appointees. I believe Mr. Ortega had expressed an interest for to serve for approximately 2 years as an initial term.
Understood. Okay. And so would the process of adding or removing a representative be as simple as agendizing and casting a vote like it was today? Is that pretty much how we go about this?
Yeah, that's correct. It would just be adoption of a new resolution in the future.
Okay. Understood. Understood. Okay. Mr. Ortega, could you begin by letting me know and explain to me as simple as possible, like if I'm a 12-year-old kid, what is the Metropolitan Water District and its board of directors?
The Metropolitan Water District was founded in 1927 to bring water from the Colorado River. It later, as growth occurred in Southern California, it became the largest agency to fund what they call the State Water Project. If you come from Sacramento, you'll see the aqueduct that runs along the I-5. Metropolitan, it's our biggest expense. It's a $200 million obligation every year, no matter whether we take a lot of water or little. The board of directors is comprised of 38 members. The members are not allowed to vote one person, one vote. Basically, you vote according to the tax value of who you represent. So San Fernando, for example, has a share that's 0.02%. The city I previously represented was 0.06%. So coalition building and being able to work with the other parties is extremely important because it's hard to get to 51% from where we began. So it's 38 board members, and we vote according to the tax weight that we represent.
And what sorts of votes are taken? What decisions are made by the board of directors?
The board of directors makes decisions that affect the infrastructure that brings water from the Colorado River. There's a major maintenance program that occurs every year where the entire aqueduct is shut down. Your typical construction contract for things that Metropolitan does is about $5 million, and it's not untypical to have board motions for as much as $20 or $30 million or even more. As I mentioned earlier, our biggest expense is the State Water Project, which is the California Aqueduct. For our share, it's approximately over $200 million a year that we pay, whether we take water or not. We also, for example, fund conservation programs. The big debate right now is how do we find sources of funding given that water sales are declining in the region. And it's those water sales where we collect the funds in order to subsidize things like water recycling and conservation. So it's a big debate. It's critical for communities like San Fernando because we don't use a lot of, you don't use a lot of MWD water. And what we have to watch out for is the chance that those that do would escalate the fixed charges that we pay, whether we use MWD water or not. So they're key decisions. Thank you.
Sure. Oh, sure. I mean, please, if you want to continue, I'm just following along.
Then, of course, I believe that another investment is in the workforce. One of the problems that we've had in the desert, as we've been hearing employees call in and testify, is that we have not reimagined what it's like to have a workforce in a place that's highly isolated. How do we protect women in particular when they're out there, not in great numbers, where you have isolation as a rule of thumb? And one of the biggest decisions Metropolitan is going to have to make is how do we reimagine how we maintain the workforce out there? It's these issues are crushing, but it ought to lead to some big vision of how we staff there.
Okay, thank you. What is your view on having a representative versus an actual elected official in this seat? Could you shed some light on your perspective as to the pros and cons of an elected official versus, somebody like yourself representing the city?
Absolutely. There are 14 cities that are independently represented at Metropolitan Water District. By my last count, of those 14 cities, 6 are represented by elected officials, and the rest are represented by independently appointed individuals. The question has surfaced on whether it's typical or not typical for a MWD board representative to live in the city that they represent. I can tell you, for example, in the city of Los Angeles, the charter calls for city council members not to belong to the MWD board, and they've had private citizens who live in Orange County, in Rancho Palos Verdes, and in South Pasadena represent that city. You also have, for example, in other cases in San Diego, where you have a representative who was the lead planner for the city of Los Angeles and lives part-time in San Diego. And so this is not without precedent in the metropolitan side. Now, I believe that every city council, as I told my city council, ought to be able to determine how they can best be represented to represent their interests. What I was told in the city of Fullerton is that there was a preference for a city council member to represent the city. And that would have been enough if I hadn't also been asked to resign. And so it wasn't like we're going to make a choice, and it was like, you got to resign so that we can do this. I didn't have to resign. The city could make that decision at any moment the way that you could, if you find that your interests can be better served.
Okay, let's touch on your last work there at Fullerton. I want to give you the platform to respond to these concerns about the quote unquote racially incendiary remarks that were attributed to you. I know sometimes people are taken out of context.
Thank you.
And we really do need a fuller picture before casting aspersions. So please, if you'd like to respond to those specific things.
Council member, I very, very much appreciate that opportunity. When I ran for chairman of the board, I was told that at least by several individuals that it bordered on the inappropriate that I would run because I was challenging an African American woman. And my response was to ask for a debate on the issues, including some of the issues that were brought before you tonight by the workforce. And I was shut down several times and told, no, you should not be challenging an African American woman. Now, I saw my colleague at the Upper San Gabriel Municipal Water District facing the same challenge. We had an opportunity to speak in public because there was a member of that board, in fact, the member who replaced him, that was making the same challenge, that as a Latino, he shouldn't be challenging an African American woman because it made all minorities look bad. So the context of my comments that I'm being called a racist for is for challenging that some of those directors that were saying that my colleague Charles Trevino shouldn't challenge an African American woman talk about the issues. And I made the error of using the term white people, which is now a trigger point for some. And so that was the basis for the supremacist blog in Fullerton to start labeling me a racist. I do not practice identity politics. I believe that we need to judge arguments based on the merits of the issues. And when I'm told that I cannot run for office or that my colleagues should not stay because we're not allowed to have political discussions or policy disagreements amongst ourselves, I have a problem with that.
Okay. Thank you for that response. Moving on, what is your view on privatization of water? Like Mr. Kimball said, that's something that San Fernando would never support, and I would never support. But could you dive into it? Could you give me the nuance? Can you discuss public-private partnerships and put things in context again? Like I'm someone that's very first, learning about it, because I think it's important in terms of water and these privatization projects that are going around the country.
Absolutely. So here's the bottom line. The private entities that I've devoted myself to representing many of them go back to the establishment of California. When farmers first arrived in San Fernando, they formed mutual water companies. They're like food co-ops. They're only authorized to serve water to their own members, and they're not allowed to make profits. They're not for profits. What happened over time is that some of those systems were purchased by investor-owned utilities, and some of them became part of municipal water departments, as you have in San Fernando. So that's one layer, one type of private, which is a private not-for-profit, many small systems in California, a lot of irrigation districts. The other side of the investor-owned utilities is exactly what they call the investor-owned utilities. They're regulated by the California Public Utilities Commission, and they're allowed to make an earning over their investments in their water systems. There was a study recently conducted by UCLA that we participated in that found that while there are some investor-owned utilities that are more affordable, there are others serving disadvantaged communities that charge more. And that has to do over what your sources of water are, because the Public Utilities Commission will allow you to recover the cost and charge it to your customers. So in those cases, for example, if an investor-owned utility has a lot of groundwater, and they have groundwater rights within the several basins in LA County, then what happens is that their water costs are less. However, if you've sold off your water rights in order to support your corporate parent or something like that, you're at the mercy of having to buy imported water from Metropolitan Water District, which could be double the cost of your groundwater. So your costs are going to be higher. Now, is there a push for privatization? I think that there are some issues that could lead a city down that path. Let me give you an example. In the city of Fullerton, the Orange County Water District is building us our treatment plant for PFAS. PFAS are forever chemicals that come off of Teflon and waterproof and fireproof materials that are now in the water and that we need to take out in order to protect public health. So we're constructing a treatment plant. What's happened is that in order to operate that treatment plant, you need what they call a T4 operator. Those operators are very scarce. They earn upwards of $130,000 a year. So what happens when you do not increase the salary range for that operator? What happens is that an investor-owned utility comes and steals them away. And that's a major challenge for water systems in California today, where we have to absolutely increase the capacity to train more operators. The associations I work with are working to expand the base through mutual aid agreements so that we're not hostage to having to sell to an investor-owned utility and then face the pressures of not being able to afford our staff. So I believe—
Mr. Ortega, in the interest of time, thank you for your answer. I'm just going to move on.
Sure.
And you can answer these next few questions simply yes or no if you like. Do you or did you support SB 625?
Yes, I did. And I did it because their Central Basin Municipal Water District was going bankrupt. The costs were going to fall on the small systems, and I thought it was better to have that system taken over by another public agency called the Water Replenishment District.
Okay. Have you in your career or in your I guess efforts as a private citizen with your own business, etc., have you worked on behalf of Nestle?
No.
Have you worked on behalf of Evian?
No.
Have you ever worked on behalf of Constellation Brands?
No. In fact, I can tell you that I've advocated against the use of bottled water because people in ethnic communities, Latinos in particular, we have a higher rate of tooth decay if we drink bottled water like we do because it doesn't have any fluoridation, which itself is controversial, but no.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to end this very briefly on my portion here. I reviewed the Fullerton meeting. I watched it. I watched all the public comments. They had very lengthy comments, just like tonight's meeting. Unfortunately, I just think that San Fernando should have some more time to consider this appointment. I think San Fernando should have all its council members present to vote and weigh in and ask questions. I do also support opening the process to include members of San Fernando that might want to advocate on our behalf on the MWD. That being said, I think it's important that the Women's Caucus Chair supports Mr. Ortega's appointment. I find that persuasive. I also find it persuasive that the Sierra Club president does not support Mr. Ortega's appointment. That being said, I absolutely 100% support investigation into this harassment culture, into the misogyny, into this kind of culture that's there in the MWD. And I also support nixing NDAs. I think they're counterproductive to an effective work environment. I don't think they have any place, especially in the public sector. I think that this is a very important decision. I do believe that Mr. Ortega is highly qualified. However, I don't have enough in front of me to make this decision because I don't know if there's any constituency in San Fernando that wishes to advocate on our behalf as well. So with that, I'll end my portion of this and I'll yield my time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. As far as the Sierra Club, unfortunately, Charming thinks that I was removed from the board. She just did not realize that, in fact, I chose to step down and asked Don Ortega if he would represent San Fernando. And with that, I want to clarify that. And Charming is a charming woman, beautiful woman. With that, Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who called in with their public or submitted their public comments regarding this item. I had the pleasure of meeting Adan Ortega on February 18th in a Zoom meeting. I was amazed at the wealth of knowledge and expertise he has in regards to the various water systems. Mr. Ortega lives in the city of Fullerton, and they get their water from a well, just as we do. He also represented Fullerton on the Metropolitan Water Board. I was equally impressed by his resume, which includes extensive experience in working with municipal water districts, water replenishment, various Los Angeles departments and bureaus, water conservation, environmental programs, educating the public, and in addition, he represents Latino and historically underserved communities. He is the founder and principal of the Ortega Strategies Group, OSG, which deals with government relations and communications, and in which specializes in water, natural resources, and complex regulatory issues. He is also the founder of the Community Water Systems Alliance, which gives a voice to water systems of California serving disadvantaged communities. He is a co-founder of the Water Education for Latino Leaders, also known as WELL. And I had actually previously participated in one of the webinars for WELL. I was very impressed. So those are available for anyone to listen in on. And that was before I knew about this appointment that we were going to be discussing today. He also serves as the executive director of the California Association of Mutual Water Companies, which represents small water systems in the legislative process, development of policies, and technical resources. He is in the early 2000s. He worked with the city of San Fernando and Pacoima to obtain funding for the stormwater augmentation study that benefited both cities. He has 30 years of experience and knowledge in California and U.S. government business and environmental organizations, which will benefit the city of San Fernando. I'm looking forward for him to give the council a monthly update on metropolitan meetings on our behalf. I would be honored to have Adan Ortega represent the city of San Fernando on the Metropolitan Water District. I also want to add that Mayor Ballin has represented the city of San Fernando on the MWD board for the past 13 years. In fact, in 2007, Nuri Martinez voted in favor of Mayor Ballin to represent San Fernando on the board. The mayor's experience, commitment, and dedication on the board has been of great benefit to our city. Knowing that serving on the MWD board, I know what it means for her to serve on this board. And I would like to commend her on her gracious request for us to appoint Mr. Ortega. Therefore, I support Adan Ortega and use of the city seal and logo. And for Mr. Ortega, I would like to say a few words to you. I would like you to be an advocate to ensure that the pattern of sexual harassment at MWD stops. I don't support the privatization of water, and also I support an independent investigation at MWD on the women's issues.
Thank you. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
I'm going to move the item. Councilmember Montanez, would you like to second?
Yes, I would proudly like to second the nomination. And thank
roll
you,
call.
Madam Mayor, for your service.
Thank you.
Yes,
roll call, please.
Councilmember Rodriguez, she is absent. Councilmember Pacheco,
Mr. Ortega may very well be the right man for the job, but without an open process, I just don't know. So City Clerk, I'm going to abstain from this vote.
all right, thank you. Councilmember Montanez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mendoza,
Yes.
Mayor Ballin.
Absolutely, 100%. Congratulations, Adan Ortega, and just know that we are partners. Although I'm stepping down, I'm going to be shoulder to shoulder with you and support you. I trust you completely. So congratulations.
Well, thank you, Mayor Ballin, and thank you, Councilmember Montañez and Mendoza. It's humbling. I know that I know where Councilmember Pacheco is coming from. I think that we have to respect the perspective that we need to get to know each other. We need to understand and trust each other. And I plan to earn that from you, Councilmember Pacheco, as well.
I appreciate those words. Thank you, Mr. Ortega.
Thank you very much. And now we are on item 8.
Mayor,
yes.
Sorry, can I respectfully request that we actually move item 12 next? We have a couple of consultants that are waiting on the phone. I know sometimes.
Well, yes, let's go ahead and do that. And if the Vice Mayor would not mind taking over at this moment, I'll be right back. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Item 12.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Item 12 is the comprehensive presentation of the comprehensive annual financial report.
Okay. So, okay, I'd like to start the presentation for the comprehensive report.
Thank you, and I will pass it over to Director of Finance, Diego Ibanez, to introduce this item and then in our audit firm.
Thank you, City Manager Kimball. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. This evening we got Brett Van Lant of Van Lant and Fankham, excuse me. He will be presenting the CAFR for our city's year ending 2020. Brett, when you're ready, please go.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Brett Van Lant. I'm one of the partners with Van Lant and Fankenel. We conducted the audit for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2020. And I have a short presentation to kind of go over the audit process and some of the reports that were issued as part of the audit. I'm going to attempt to share my screen and go over that PowerPoint. Let's see. All right. So as part of the audit, there were several reports that were issued. Most notably, it would be the opinion on the financial statements. There was a report on internal control and compliance, and a report on the calculation of the city's appropriations limits. So the audit process is kind of broken up into two different parts. We have what's called we call the preliminary audit fieldwork. And this is where we assess the risk that the financial statements could contain a material misstatement, whether it be caused by fraud or errors. Part of this process, we are gaining an understanding of the internal controls of the city and most notably the controls over financial reporting. And so in doing this, we're evaluating the cash receipts process, the cash disbursements process, the purchasing process, payroll, how payroll's conducted, and any other significant audit areas based on our judgment. In doing this, we're actually looking at specific transactions, observing how transactions take place and are recorded into the city's general ledger. And we're also inquiring with city staff throughout the city, including outside of City Hall. We don't just stay in City Hall. We actually look at different areas of the city, the community centers and police department, things like that. So we actually try to look at all aspects that relate to the city's financial reporting. And so the whole purpose of this process is to gain an understanding of how the internal controls work and to assess the risk that any of these internal controls might not detect a material misstatement to the city's financial statements. The second part of the audit process is what we call the year-end audit fieldwork. This is where we're actually looking at the amounts and the balances in the city's financial statements and the note disclosures. Some of the procedures that we do involve our judgment based off of our risk assessment process. Depending on different audit areas, we might have to do additional testing, depending on that understanding of the internal controls and how they work. The procedures that we do are substantive testing of the balances. And by doing this, we are confirming with outside entities. We confirm with the state the payments that are made to the city from the state. We confirm with the county the property tax payments that are paid to the city. We are testing transactions, doing analytical procedures, prior year comparisons, and inquiring with staff on the amounts that are actually recorded in your financial statements themselves. So that's kind of just a brief overview of the actual audit process itself. And I'll go into some of the reports that were issued. So the audit report, this is the audit report on the financial statements. Different parts of the financial or the audit report talks about the responsibilities of both parties. The financial statements themselves are management's responsibility. Our responsibility is to express an opinion on those financial statements. Our audit is providing reasonable assurance that the amounts and disclosures are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The procedures that we perform involve our judgment based off of our risk assessment. The city's financial statements received an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, meaning we did not identify any material departures from generally accepted accounting principles. The report also goes on to discuss our responsibility over the required supplementary information, which would be the MD&A, the budgetary schedules, pension and OPEB schedules. We're doing limited audit procedures on those, and we are not expressing an opinion. Our audit report also talks about our responsibility over the supplementary information in the financial statements as well. I have some key figures from the financial statements. The general fund balance increased approximately 1.8 million compared to the prior year. The unrestricted fund balance in the general fund is approximately 2 months reserves, which is GFOA's best practices recommends a minimum of 2 months operating reserves. So that kind of gives you an idea where the city's at as far as GFOA is the Government Finance Officers Association. It's a national organization. They put out best practices for municipalities. And so that's kind of just in there for your understanding of kind of where the city's at in regards to best practices. I did want to note that there was a purchase of radio equipment that we identified as a subsequent event in the financial statements. And the purchase took place during the fiscal year, but that activity does not actually affect the financial statements themselves for 2020 based on the timing of the receipt of those equipment and any liability for it. So that's a subsequent event in the financial statements themselves. GASB 68, which was the pension standards that was issued several years ago. Your net pension liability, you can see it went up about $2.5 million compared to the prior year. Just something to keep in mind. Your pension contributions actually increased about $500,000 this year. These are the required contributions by CalPERS based on the actuarially determined rates. I wanted to note page 55 of the CAFR discusses the difference in discount rates if CalPERS is off by 1%, high or low. It kind of have a significant impact on your actual pension liability. I believe it goes up roughly 18 million just by reducing that discount rate 1%. So it's a very sensitive disclosure in your financial statements. So I just thought I'd point that out a little bit. And then also GASB 75, which is the OPEB liability. You can see that your OPEB liability is about similar to your net pension liability, but currently the city does not have any money set aside for this. So that's something to keep in mind as well moving forward. So the internal control report is a required report by government auditing standards. It is if we identify any significant deficiencies, material weaknesses, or material non-compliance that could affect the city's financial statements, we would be required to report that to the city council in this report. I'm happy to report we did not identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses or non-compliance that could be material to the city's financial statements. That report is a standard report this year, so there's nothing significant that would be or that was reported in that report. The report on the city's appropriations limit. This is an agreed upon procedures that we test the city's calculation of the GAN limit or the appropriations limit. And it's an exceptions only report, meaning if we identify any exceptions, we would be reporting that. And we found we had no exceptions to report in that calculation. There was also a letter that is addressed directly to the city council. This is a required communication with those charged with governance. It's required by our audit standards. And it talks about different estimates and sensitive disclosures in your financial statements. Some of those disclosures I discussed, which would be the pension and the OPEB disclosures. And the reason that they're sensitive is because they are estimates. They're based off of actuarial calculations, and actuaries do their best, but obviously they could be right or wrong, and we have to go with the best practices of what they calculate. So that's why these reports are bringing those to your attention. If we had any difficulties or disagreements with management throughout the audit process, we would be reporting those in this letter as well. I'm happy to report we had no difficulties or disagreements, and any other audit findings or issues, we would be reporting that in that letter as well. That letter was a standard letter, just required communication as part of our audit. So if you have any questions about the audit process or the financial statements themselves, I'd be happy to answer them. But before, I'd just like to say thank you to Diego and Sonia for their help in the audit process. The audit is a lot of work on both parties, so I just wanted to make sure I extend my thanks to them for helping us get through it and providing all the information that we needed.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Pacheco, do you have any questions? Could you clear this? Oh, good. We'll move on.
Yes, thank you. I guess this might be a question for staff, but obviously feel free to chime in. I'm very curious as to what impact our labor agreements have had on our OPEB and CalPERS issues. Mr. Padilla, I don't know if this is pertinent enough or germane to the issue, or if this is something that should be discussed on another item, but I am just kind of curious as to, what savings are happening or how the trajectory has changed through, the latest round of employee contracts and so forth.
I believe it informs just the city's budget health in general. So I think as long as we're not making decisions about, employee retirement, I think a quick response to that question, if anybody knows it, would be appropriate or acceptable.
And I defer that to the city manager. He's been working with some of those groups in the past year. Nick?
Sure. Thank you, council member, for that question. Actually, in 2015, I just want to remind the council and anyone that may be, any residents that may be tuning in, one of the benefits, the retirement benefits that the city offers is paid medical for employees that retire from the city of San Fernando. In 2015, that's a relatively expensive benefit. So in 2015, City Council actually changed that through an MOU negotiation. So if any employee is hired after July 1, 2015, instead of having a defined benefit for retiree health care, which the benefit at the time was, the city pays for retiree health care, to a defined contribution, which means that the city will pay. It depends between bargaining unit. It ranges from $50 to $150 a month into what's called a retiree health trust. And then that employee gets to invest that similar to like a 401k. And then, that's what's used to pay for employees' retiree health. So there's after the employee retires, there's no ongoing obligation of the city, which is a significant savings from a long-term liability perspective. As far as the exact amount that might have saved, we do get an annual, or actually I think it's every 2 years. We have an actuarial that updates our retiree health long-term liability projection. So quite frankly, a lot of that takes a while to start experiencing savings because retiree health is a very long benefit, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, 30 usually is a benefit that's paid over 30 plus years. Changes to that benefit take 20 plus years to actually start having a significant impact on retiree health on our actuarial report. However, it's been 5 years now, and we can get more information on exactly what the number and the projection has been. But I can assure you that over that 30-year span, it will save the taxpayers an extremely significant amount of time that that the city council approved that change in retiree health benefits in 2015.
Okay, and as far as like the tough decisions we made on asking employees about their CalPERS contributions, how we've been kind of making tough decisions in that end as well. I mean, if you could play it just a little bit of context and how it's supposed to be affecting our finances.
Sure. Yeah. So a number of bargaining units, a number of employee groups through our last negotiation cycle over the last few years actually now contribute contribute to the retiree health, to their pension cost. So this is the payment that we make on a monthly basis after that. So that's actually started to save not save the city money, but it's helped control our cost on what we have to pay to CalPERS, because the employee is now paying into that share. Also, you know,
Whereas previously they weren't, right?
They weren't, no, exactly. So again, and also the effort right now, looking at pension obligation bonds that through the ad hoc is one of the strategies that we can take advantage of low interest rates right now in the market and refinance that $40+ million debt. It's a lot of liability that we owe to CalPERS, which again is a similar situation for many California cities. We're getting charged, you know, for all intents and purposes, about 7% interest on that liability. So the strategy that City Council is taking to try and take advantage of a low interest rate environment right now and refinance that, even at, you know, a 3% pension obligation bond, it will result in, again, tens of millions of dollars potentially in savings to taxpayers over that 30+ years. So there are a number of strategies and decisions the City Council has made, this current City Council and in prior, to really over time reduce those numbers, those $40 million liability numbers pretty significantly. It just takes time. There's such long-term numbers that it takes a little time for them to.
Could you maybe throw an optimistic time frame as to the process to refinance such a feat?
Sure. Optimistic. I probably in the next, you know, before the end of the fiscal year.
This fiscal year?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, wow.
I think that's a very realistic goal before June to be able to.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The ad hoc committee is actually of Vice Mayor Mendoza and Councilmember Montanez are actually working very hard to interview underwriting firms right now. So that's the next hurdle, and we're moving forward.
And I will just end it with thanking Ms. Montañez and you know, the Vice Mayor for that hard work. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Montañez.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Brett, for the presentation, and it's good to have a clean audit. So, you know, good job, Diego and Nick and the whole team. Maybe at some other point I could kind of go through the management letter and then go through whatever recommendations you have. And, you know, Brett or Diego, Nick, we could just discuss that. And so that way, if there are any recommendations there, we could work to implement them.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you for the presentation, Brett. I do have, just want to give kudos to staff for meeting the reserve requirement mandated of 1.8 million, which is just great. Puts us in a great place. And although we do have the liability with the pensions, and we're working on it, as you just heard, we're working hard on that, and I can't wait till we're done with that ad hoc committee so we can bring something to council, and we will be in a much better place in terms of that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but everyone did a great job and I appreciate it. And this is a receive and file, correct, Nick? Okay, and you're on mute.
Correct. No directions needed.
No. Okay, thank you so much, Brett, and looking forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Diego.
Take care.
Okay, now, where are we at? We are at the public hearing. Item 8 is a public hearing to consider and adopt a resolution establishing the allocation of community development block grant funds for fiscal year 2021-2022. I officially declare the public hearing open. Staff presentation by City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to make the announcement now, if there are any members of the public that are watching on YouTube and would like to dial in or make a comment during this public hearing, you know, please, on the second page of the agenda is the dial-in information. The call-in number is 669-900-6833, and the meeting ID and passcode are both printed in the agenda. So again, if there's anyone that does want to make a comment, you know, we'll go back to after we have our first round of council comments. We can check with the city clerk, and if there's anyone that's called in, we can take the public comment at that point. Real quickly, back to staff presentation. The city receives an annual allocation of federal community development block grant, known as CDBG funding, from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Through our participation in the Los Angeles County CDBG program, that's administered by the LA Community Development Corporation. CDBG funds can only be used for eligible community development projects that meet a national program goal, and that includes assisting the low and moderate
The
income.
city receives an annual allocation of
Sorry, I muted that person. Low and moderate income residents of the community. This will be the 47th year that the federal government has made the CDBG funds available to counties and cities across the nation. And on February 1st, the City Council discussed potential programs to fund the CDB, to fund using our fiscal year 21, 2022 allocation. So that, and that was the two, I'll go over the two programs in a minute. The total amount available in the coming fiscal year is about $229,900. From a procedural standpoint, in order to receive the CDBG funds through LA Community Development Corporation, the city must determine its intended allocations for the upcoming fiscal year, provide an opportunity for public input and comment on such proposed uses, which is this public hearing tonight, and submit an adopted city council resolution approved by city or approved city council meetings and convey the city's intended allocations. After we submit these to the LA Community Development Corporation, they will review them and approve them if they are eligible for CDBG funding. So as you may remember, pursuant to City Council direction on February 1st, and after quite a bit of great work again by the ad hoc of Councilmember Pacheco and Councilmember Rodriguez, who spent a lot of time working with staff to come up with a few COVID-related programs that really are community focused. The two programs that were recommended by the ad hoc and then direction was provided by City Council on February 1st to come back to establish those are the Water and Sewer Utility Assistance Program. And that program will provide water and sewer utility bill credit of up to $500 per recipient for residents impacted by COVID-19, and provide financial counseling services from a third party to connect applicants with other available resources and programs. The recommended allocation for that particular program is $45,980, and that is because it is capped. Utility assistance programs are capped at 20% of the total allocation because it is considered a public service project. That 45,000 represents the full 20% allocation cap. The second program recommended by the ad hoc and directed by City Council to move forward is the Business Grant Program. Again, this provides grants of up to $5,000 per recipient to businesses impacted by COVID-19, and also provides financial counseling and or technical assistance services from a third-party firm. Again, this is to connect applicants with other available resources and programs. This is not considered a public service project, therefore there is no cap. The recommended budget is the remaining amount after we take away the Water and Utility Assistance Program allocation. So the allocation for the Business Grant Program is recommended at $183,925. To establish these new programs for funding for next fiscal year, that is fiscal year 21-22, the City Council will need to provide a general description of the program, which is in the staff report. The details of the program, including the final amount for the utility credit or grant amount and the business grant amounts, application process, and awarding a contract to a firm that can provide those counseling and technical assistance services can be finalized after the program is established and approved by the Los Angeles Community Development Authority. So if the proposed programs are approved tonight by City Council, and they're approved by, and they're submitted and approved by Los Angeles Community Development Corporation, then staff recommends that we work further with the ad hoc committee. Again, that's council members Pacheco and Rodriguez, to work through the details and refine the program requirements with regards to the actual amounts of grants and credits and the application process and then marketing of those particular programs. That concludes staff comments, and we are available for questions. Again, Michael Neal from our third party, our consultant, is and a CDBG expert is also available if there happen to be any additional questions.
Okay, I will start with Council Member Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. I think staff and Councilwoman Rodriguez and I really put some thought and effort into trying to drill down what might be some really good use of the funds. And again, I will touch briefly on the hope that the new stimulus package will have more funds for us coming down the pipe as well, but I don't want to count any of our eggs before they hatch. That being said, I support these efforts, and I'm absolutely open to hearing the thoughts of my colleagues and how we can incorporate other great ideas into our initiatives here. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Council Member Montanez.
Okay, I mean, I strongly support us, putting the community development block grant money into the hands of residents and businesses, especially those struggling with COVID. I think this is great. And so I guess one recommendation would be, I guess, and then a question is how soon do you think residents can begin to reach out to the city if they need that $500 to pay for their water and sewer bill? How soon do you think that could happen, Nick? And then the other, maybe it's more of a suggestion, is on the business grants, is if maybe we could do like a mid-year review, and if there are sufficient funds to look at augmenting the amount. So maybe instead of just the $5,000 cap, maybe we could give a $10,000 cap depending on what's left and how many businesses have applied. But maybe just doing, I think we do have to do, right, some kind of mid-year evaluation, or if not, if we could do like a mid-year evaluation of the program to see if any adjustments are necessary, but still keeping the allocation of the 20%, cap required on the first program, and then the other funds clearly going into the business kind of grant program.
Sure. Thank you, Council Member. So the first, with regards to your first question, so these are for the fiscal year 21-22 program year. So as far as when we can actually start giving grants to residents for their utility bill, that it'll assuming that the LACDA approves these programs in short order, then it would have to be after July would be the earliest that we could start making those payments. That being said, we can work toward, and that's the recommendation, that we start working on an application now. And the idea would be to have a relatively simple one or maybe maximum 2-page application. And what we would do is put that application in the actual water bill. So we would mail it out directly to customers. The applications do need to be approved. They also need to be approved by LACDA. So there is a little bit of a process there. So as soon as we had a final application that, and again, as simple as possible, that we were comfortable with, we would send it, get approved, and then we would start putting those in utility bills. We would like to, the idea would be to try and get at least one round of applications in utility bills prior to July. And then as we start receiving those, once we receive those applications, they would need to be approved by LACDA. And as soon as they're approved, we could apply those credits. So there will be a little bit of a process because it is federal funding. That being said, we will be making sure that every resident that has an account, a water account, receives an application. And then we'll also be putting it out through our social media. But I would say that it will probably be a few months before we're ready to start taking applications. With regards to your second point about a mid-year review, yeah, and in fact, I do, we do expect there to be some sort of additional funding provided, if not through CDBG, but through the CARES Act. So as that happens, and that, I expect that to be well before mid-year. As we get that information and we get confirmation that we will actually receive those funds, we will bring those back to city council to discuss where those, city council would like those allocated. And that would also be a good time to discuss whether, potentially augmenting these funds that would be granted to businesses.
All right, excellent. All right, let's do this. Great.
Vice Mayor Mendoza.
Well, I'd like to thank the ad hoc committee, Councilmember Pacheco and Rodriguez, for the work you've done on this funding for 21-22. And I support all the programs that are on there, and it's great work. I'm glad that we're going to be able to support our residents and our businesses, and hopefully we will get some more money. And I know this is so that we can submit some things so we can get the funding for 2021-22 as soon as possible, or 2021, right? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Nick, you're on mute.
Sorry, I just actually explained the meaning of life, and you all missed it because I was like,
We did.
They look confused.
Yeah, no, actually, so this funding starts on July 1st and it gets confusing when you start saying all these 20s, 21s, 22s, but it will be July 1st of 2021 through the following July of 2022.
All right. So then my understanding, the sooner we get something in, the sooner we're going to be able to get our funding. So yeah, I think it's just great. And thank you for all the work. Thank you for everyone's input as well. Thank you.
I'd like to echo Councilmember Montanez and the Vice Mayor. The ad hoc committee's done a really great job. I'm very appreciative. Those are my only comments, and staff, by the way, very appreciative for all of your hard work as well. And at this time, I'm calling for—
Mayor?
Yes.
If I may, I also want to just note that the ad hoc and staff, if we can, really ensure that there's a transparency aspect to the grants as well. I want taxpayers to know, and I want our residents to know that's just not going to go into like a black hole and we're never going to see it again. We're really going to try to, be intentional about keeping track, right? And really trying to, have the facts when they arise. So, but thank you.
Appreciate that, because that is important to our residents. I'm now calling for public comment. City Clerk, has anyone called in?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ballin. And we do not have any callers. However, we do have a written public statement for the public hearing. Okay. And yes, it's from Jennifer Tanner. If the plan is to remove a progressive woman, Sylvia Ballin, to make room for a lobbyist.
I believe that comment is not germane to this public hearing. It looks like it was.
That is correct. And I withdraw the comment. The title.
I mean, it should be entered in the record as part of the earlier proceeding if it wasn't read, but.
Will do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney.
Okay. Thank you very much. With that, I will close public hearing by motion. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Pacheco and seconded by Montanez. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Rodriguez, she is absent. Councilmember Pacheco?
Yes.
Councilmember Montanez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mendoza?
Yes.
Mayor Ballin?
Yes, the motion passes. And at this time, we're at council deliberation and we'll take a vote. Is there any other deliberation that we would like to discuss on this issue? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Rodriguez is absent. Councilmember Pacheco?
Yes.
Councilmember Montanez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mendoza?
Yes.
And Mayor Ballin?
Yes. Yes, the motion passes and the public hearing is officially closed, and we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is item 9. Are we on item 9, Nick, or did you want to move anything around?
No,
We're good?
Go back to regular order. Thank you.
Okay, so we're on item 9, presentation and update regarding COVID-19 response efforts. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to pass this over to Deputy City Manager Tim Howe for a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Ballin and council members. Can you see my screen? And it is
Yes.
the presentation. Great. This is the update on COVID-19 response efforts. As of February 24th, these are the San Fernando statistics as well as the countywide statistics. So 1.1 million cases countywide, 21,000 deaths countywide. Here locally, within the city of San Fernando, we've had over 5,000 cases, 53 deaths, and vaccinations, 1,959, and I believe there's an updated number on that. The latest reported number is actually 2,224 vaccinated from the city of San Fernando. As a refresher, statewide, a limited stay-at-home order was ordered on November 21st, which imposed a curfew. The regional stay-at-home order ended on January 25th, returning counties to the prior model of a blueprint for a safer economy, and that was our tiered system that was county by county. California's blueprint for a safer economy is based on a color-coded tier system with the purple, the top one there, the widespread, being the most restrictive, and that would be for counties that have more than 7 as an adjusted case rate, and that case rate is cases per 100,000, and a positivity rate greater than 8%. This is where the state was on January 26th. You'll notice some of the statewide metrics. Just over a month ago, 71 cases as a case rate, 12.4% as a positivity rate, and 0 ICU capacity. As we move forward to our latest data as of February 23rd, that case rate has dropped precipitously down to 15.2, the positivity rate down to 4.8, and ICU availability has gone from 0 to almost 21%. Within LA County specifically, the countywide metrics show a case rate of 16.5, adjusted to 12.3, and a 5.1% positivity rate. So all favorable statistics, but with the 12.3 adjusted case rate, we do not yet qualify, we do not yet meet the criteria to drop down to a lesser restrictive tier. We would need to get down below 8. The LA County Reopening Safer at Work Health Officer Order, the latest revision for the county order was issued on February 18th. The latest order reflects both the Supreme Court decision regarding places of worship being able to reopen for indoor services, and most recently, that county schools may reopen consistent with state revisions to state guidelines for in-person instruction for grades TK through 6 when adjusted daily case rates are less than 25 for 5 consecutive days. As we mentioned in the data on the previous slide, that is the case in Los Angeles County. However, for grades 7 through 12, those may not reopen in the widespread Tier 1 counties, the ones in the purple tier, such as LA. City Hall reopened to the public on February 22nd and is currently open to the public on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from noon to 5:30. The swap meet permit renewal processing was on hold. It is no longer on hold. That is a typo. Vendors are allowed until March 31st to renew, and we anticipate the Recreation Community Services anticipates outdoor fitness classes to resume later this month at Las Palmas Park. COVID-19 PCR testing is available at a walk-up testing site at Recreation Park, which opened just around Thanksgiving, and that is free testing, which is available 6 days a week. Street closures on San Fernando Road between Brand Boulevard and Maclay. Those were initiated for first phase during the summer up through the fall. A second phase was recently reopened last month in consultation with the San Fernando Mall Association. The modified closures for phase 2 it closes San Fernando Road Friday evening, Saturday evening, and fully reopens again Sunday morning. The city parks open space service area regulations allow Fernando businesses to provide outdoor services in the city's park space. That program, as well as other COVID-19 programs, have been extended through June 30th. Additional city-approved COVID-19 relief programs that have been sanctioned over the last several weeks include the business license processing fee waiver, interest-free payment plan options for business license, delinquent fee amnesty for business license, items that have been recently discussed, the mall maintenance assessment waiver, the parking maintenance assessment waiver, non-construction permit fee waivers, interest-free payment plans for water and sewer utility bills, a parking ticket reduction program, free fares for riders of Mission City Transit, and what the item was previously discussed, additional relief programs that would be funded through our next fiscal year's CDB fund. The San Fernando Residential Food Distribution Program had a 4th round distribution on February 20th, and a 5th round distribution is anticipated later this month. Here is an example of the bag of goods. On the business side, the Personal Protective Equipment Program, a 1st round distributed in December, and a 2nd round is anticipated to be distributed later this month. In terms of tenant protections, the laws still stand, AB 3088 and the Successor SB 91, which are statewide protections for residential tenants, protecting them from eviction for failure to pay rent due to hardship caused by COVID-19. There's also a state rental assistance program for income qualified tenants with unpaid rent. And important update, locally, LA County's eviction moratorium, which had most recently been updated on a month-to-month basis. The county has gone ahead and extended protections for residential and commercial tenants from eviction through June 30th. COVID-19 vaccines. Emergency use authorization for the first 2 vaccines were issued back in December. States Phase 1A distribution began in December as well. Phase 1B, the Tier 1 distribution to persons aged 65 and older began on January 20th. Happy to report that over the weekend, the FDA gave emergency use authorization for Johnson & Johnson's vaccine, and this is unique relative to the initial 2 vaccines because it is the first single-shot vaccine to be approved. The phases of vaccinating, as mentioned, the phases on the left, actively vaccinating now, the section on the blue side should be kind of this teal color as well. It hasn't been updated yet on the county's website, but the second level of Phase 1B vaccinations for education and childcare, emergency services, food and agriculture, The ability to schedule, sign up for appointments began today, and vaccinations have began trickling out slowly today as well for folks that qualify under this tier. Where to get the vaccine? So a number of different points of dispensing. One, primary care clinics, such as community clinics, hospitals. Important to note, the city has been working with LA Care and USC Medical on a vaccination clinic at San Fernando Swap Meet. The anticipated start date was earlier in this month. However, due to the delays in quantity of supply available, now the anticipated start is on Wednesday, March 31st. Another point of dispensing are pharmacies, Walgreens, CVS, for example, and smaller pharmacies. The third are LA County pods, points of dispensing sites. The main locations that are closest to our city are Cal State Northridge and Magic Mountain. LA City Fire Department run points of dispensing, which include San Fernando Recreation Park, and the Cal OES Megapod site at Cal State Los Angeles is open and operating as well. Vaccine appointments are available. They are free. These still remain the best points of obtaining an appointment for a vaccine. For LA County sites, vaccinatelacounty.com. For LA Fire sites, carbonhealth.com. There is a phone number you can call if you don't have internet accessibility, which is 833-540-0473. Again, I just want to reiterate that there continues to be a very limited supply of vaccinations available, and therefore limited supply of vaccination appointments available for first-time doses. In the past several weeks, those numbers have been as low as 30 to 40 to 50,000 appointments available per week for first doses. So extremely limited when you look at just the overall county population. You can sign up as well as find out your eligibility on myturn.ca.gov. And LAUSD has set up their own dispensing program with a point of dispensing as well for their staff. And they have established a testing and vaccination help desk. And the phone number for that is 213-241-2700. So if you are LAUSD staff, or if any of your loved ones or friends are, please make sure that they're aware of this resource. Updated LA County COVID-19 data continues to show trends going in a favorable direction. The first being number of persons tested. That is continuing to decline from its high earlier last month. And the latest numbers are the 7-day average has dropped from a high on January 11th of 107,000 to just over 50,000. The percent of tests that are positive, you continue to see a downward trend and a favorable trend here. For example, the daily 7-day average on December 27th was over 18%, and we are now down to 3.5%. Daily number of hospitalized patients, again, as a contrast, on January 1st, 7,544 hospitalized patients countywide. As of February 28th, that number is 1,661. Daily number of deaths as a 7-day average, that number is continuing to trend in a favorable direction as well. The latest data of February 28th being 107. The mortality rate continues to grow as deaths continue to pile up, and continues to reflect the disparate impact on people of color and areas of poverty. Staff is available to answer any questions. Thank you.
And Mayor, before we move on, I wanted to add just a few things to Tim's presentation. Tim, if you want to exit out of the I just wanted to give a little bit more kind of local data to some of the vaccination and testing information. So for the San Fernando Rec Park testing and vaccination site, when it first opened back in November, there were 2,500 to 3,000 tests being COVID tests being administered daily, and an average positivity rate was very high at 27%. Since then, and currently, they're averaging only 300 tests daily, and that's a function of demand, not supply. So the demand for tests has gone down dramatically, and there's an average of only 8% positivity rate at that site, which is good to see a positivity rate going down. Vaccinations, just overall vaccinations done at that site through February 24th has been just under 45,500 vaccinations administered out of San Fernando Rec Park, and that average is about 1,100 vaccinations per day. As of February 20th, which is about 10 days ago, 45.8% of San Fernando residents age 65 plus has received at least one vaccination. Hopefully in real time, that number is much higher as this is about 10 days old, this data. And then, which works out to about 1,180 residents age 65 plus. As Tim had mentioned earlier, in total, 2,224 San Fernando residents have received at least one vaccination dose. Again, that's as of February 20th, about 10 days ago. Tim was able to put up the information on LAUSD, who has been approved as their own, they're a very large organization. They're approved as their own megapod, and they'll be vaccinating their workers. I did have some correspondence today with with Kelly Gomez, with LAUSD board member Kelly Gomez's office, and they provided us that number. There's also a website for LAUSD staff, achieve.lausd.net/COVID vaccine. All eligible staff will be receiving their email, an email from LAUSD. I just mentioned that because they are such a significant employer. In fact, they are the largest employer in San Fernando, employing over 2,000 folks. So I think that's important for residents. I'm sure a lot of our residents work for LAUSD. We're also working on with the 65 plus population. We're continuing to focus on getting more of those residents vaccinated. We're working with Cal OES, Office of Emergency Services, and Providence Healthcare to really focus on small mobile clinics. Through Providence Healthcare, they will continue to focus on the 65 plus population for the next few weeks, and they're servicing those appointments out of San Fernando, out of Vaughn Elementary School. What I would suggest is any resident that is 65 plus and would like to be hasn't received a vaccination yet, please call. You can call 818-898-1202, and we'll route you to the appropriate contact with our recreation department. What they'll do is they'll pass along your name to Providence, and Providence will reach out directly once they have your name and contact information to get you signed up for an appropriate date for that vaccine. And then Cal OES, we're looking at actually bringing, if there is an opportunity to bring a mobile clinic to where we have larger density of senior population. We have a number of senior living facilities in San Fernando. So if that's an opportunity that we're really trying to get a clinic, a one-day clinic set up at one of those sites, so that seniors that may be there can very easily, walk down their steps and make a reservation, and get vaccinated. So we have a few different irons in the fire, so to speak, with regards to our 65 plus population. And as Tim had mentioned, we are still working with LA Care and USC on a larger vaccination clinic. Their goal is to do at least 1,000 vaccinations each day that they have a clinic there. Unfortunately, that has been postponed a few weeks, but we're still working hard. We're still moving forward on logistics and planning. And as soon as those vaccines are available, we'll be ready to go at the swap meet, and we will make everyone aware through Alert San Fernando and our various communication channels on social media. I would really recommend, I think there are a number of different websites now. It seems like we're starting to centralize the registration process through myturn.ca.gov. So I would really recommend that everyone go to myturn.ca.gov. If it isn't your turn yet, you're not in one of those sectors that Tim had identified earlier, please put in your information anyway, and you will receive an email as soon as it is your turn. And you can click on those registration sites. Tim said there is a lot of scarcity. In fact, the LA Fire run sites, I know 4 or 5 days over the last 2 weeks, they had to close down Rec Park because there just simply were no vaccinations left. They didn't have any supply. So make sure to check that often. I do know even for teachers in food and agriculture, I have heard that the site at Cal State LA, which is a federal FEMA run site, so it's a separate allocation from the rest of LA County, is accepting appointments for the people in that new phase 1B that can get out to Cal State LA. So I would again encourage everyone to go through that site. We did send out an alert San Fernando today in both English and Spanish, a text to all of our residents. We had to be very direct. We have less, I think we have 120 characters, so it's even less than a tweet. We just tried to get everyone out, just go to that myturn.ca.gov and see if you can get on your list, so it's your turn to get a vaccination. That's all I have. So, and we would love to address any questions that Council may have.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Thank you. Thank you to staff. Another great report. I know it's tedious. We've been doing this for so long now, but obviously it's very important information. Just a couple of brief questions. As far as the road closures in the San Fernando Mall, I was curious as to the reasoning or what the mall association might have had for reopening the road on Sunday. I mean, I just figured that maybe a lot of people are still, eating out on Sundays, etc. And I'm wondering, I guess maybe they didn't see a need for outdoor dining or what. Maybe you can just kind of add some color to that.
Sure. Really, it's a function of the number of different uses that are on that block. We have retail, restaurant, and a number of personal service type of businesses, and so for all of them, they have different sort of popular times that customers patronize. So for many of those retail and personal service establishments, daytime, the hours of basically noon to 4 are sort of their most significant customer base is out during that time. And so they really prefer to have the road open, for vehicle traffic during that time on both Saturday and Sunday. Whereas the restaurants, obviously are a little bit more popular after 5 p.m. for dinner for Friday, Saturday, and even Sunday. So it was kind of I guess a negotiation between the different types of retail of vendors on the mall to come to some sort of agreement that benefits a number of different types of uses.
Okay, understood. And hopefully, they're getting plenty of foot traffic And another question I had, you know, it's nice to be able to have a vaccination site if you have, you know, a car and gas money, etc. And so I'm wondering, and maybe we touched upon this in the past already, whether the trolley system or the dial-a-ride, maybe instead, can be utilized to help folks get to their home, to the vaccination site and back. I don't know if you've already explored that, or you know, if there's been interest.
Yes, we actually already implemented that program.
Got it. Okay.
For anyone, we're using our dial-a-ride system. So anyone that has an appointment to one of the walk-up sites can call for a free ride. Julian, I see you're on. If you have the number in front of you to the Dial-A-Ride, we can get that out. But there's a number you call. We'll schedule. They'll drop you off and then come back about an hour or so later, or you just call when you're done.
You call them back, yeah.
Yeah, and then they'll come back. So those are for any of the walk-up sites within about a 5 to 7 mile radius.
Great. You know, and I'll just respectfully request that we continue to try to tweet that out or post it on our Facebook post, because obviously front of mind right now for everybody is how do I get a vaccine and how fast can I get it? So it's super relevant. But okay, thank you so much. You my time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez.
Okay, I mean, it's wonderful to hear the focus on 65 plus. Thank you for that. Really getting our seniors vaccinated. I think, you know, that's key. It's impressive that San Fernando has vaccinated 45,000 since we opened the vaccination. Although the 2,200 of residents, it's still low. So here's a recommendation. Thank you also, Nick and Tim, for following up on recommendations or suggestions that have come from council members, because I think they are helping. It's good to have these numbers now specific to our community. Here's a recommendation. Is it possible, because they are doing like 2,000 to 3,000 vaccinations a day, to set aside like 500, 1,000, it depends on demand, for San Fernando residents that can walk up for vaccination? So seniors, I think, will be really helpful, and it'll be helpful to the seniors, I would say, because then it's so hard to register online or call because the appointments are always full. So now with any of the phases, can we, as San Fernando residents, if we're 65 plus, if we're at education, food and ag, grocery workers, emergency services, all the ones that are eligible now, if we have our San Fernando ID or driver's license or whatever it may be, and we walk up to the site that day, can we get our vaccination? Is that possible, to make sure that we are getting San Fernando residents registered? I know that they're doing this in other areas, not just in LA County, but in other parts of the state, where people can walk up, you get your number, right? You can line up, and they say they have 100 people, or they have 100 set aside for local residents. You get your number and you can come back at the time they tell you to come back. Come back at 9, at 10, at 11, or 12, whatever time. Can we ask if we could do that for San Fernando residents? So to set aside a certain amount. So then what we can start doing is we could say, okay, we've got the 25,000 residents, and now we have a goal. We want 500 a day or 1,000 a day, so that we can then get all 25,000 that want to get a vaccination, get us done quick.
Yes.
If we're qualified. If we're qualified and eligible.
Yeah, definitely ask that in working with LAFD to see if we can make that happen.
Okay, that would be great. It's really good to hear that testing too. So people should know testing is available. Plenty of tests. Go show up, get your test. It's still available. That's really great news to hear on the testing. And then the last thing too that I just want to say on the street closures, it was great to see the pop-up that happened this weekend. I went and I got some delicious olive sourdough bread. You know, there was cakes. I bought some beautiful earrings that were made by local, women in town. It was really wonderful. So thank you for working with the community to get that going. The restaurants seem to be doing well. I mean, Buenazo, my mom and I had a great lunch at Buenazo. They were filled. You know, we wanted to hang out more, but we wanted to give the table to someone else that was waiting. So actually it was Sandy from Manzanitas and her kids were there. And so we're like, oh, Sandy's waiting. We better hurry up, eat our food and go. So that was really wonderful to see, you know, people coming back. People I saw were being very safe. So thank you, San Fernando residents and visitors. People are keeping the distance. I didn't see people going from table to table, which is something that the mayor has brought up before. So we could do this. Like, I believe we could do this. We're on the verge of like getting our community vaccinated. We have the ability to do it. We have the locations. We just now need to get our people there. I love the idea, Nick, of these mobile clinics to show up at our senior residences. I think that's fantastic. It really is. So really, you know, thank you for being creative and figuring out ways to get the vaccines into our arms so that we could be safer.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I want to thank Tim on his presentation because he brings up the same presentation, but it's always different. There's always something added and you have everything and you're very thorough. It's easy to follow, easy for residents to understand everything you're saying and you have on there. So I really appreciate all that work because I know it's very detailed. And for the work that staff's done and getting those working on getting the mobile units, getting the 65 and over vaccinated, and setting up the process. That's a lot of work that you're all doing to get this done and get our residents vaccinated. Councilmember Pacheco, great questions, and Councilmember Montañez, the recommendation, great recommendation. I'd like to maybe possibly add, and I'm not sure if that would be, if others would accept that, is that the essential workers that work in the city of San Fernando, because we can keep them safe, then our residents will be safe as well, those that shop there. So maybe that can be added. And just one thing on notifying the members for the swap meet, the permits. Do you have a process? Do you have something set up where you notify them that they have until March 31st to get their business permits?
I'll let Director of Finance Ibanez answer that. I think he's been corresponding with them.
That is correct. Good evening, Council. Yes, we have notified the swap meet via email, letting them know the extension for the renewals. And we also told a few vendors who came in, and word of mouth spreads quickly. Our first day we were very slow. In the last few days, we have gone through a lot of renewals. So.
Do you know if they have any signage over there at the swap meet?
That I do not know.
That'd be something that we can give them.
I can possibly send them an email and come back to you.
So that might be helpful. I just really thank you for everything you've done. And like Councilmember Montañez said, you're listening to everything that we presented to you, and you're following through and getting it done. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
So I also want to echo what all the council members said. Thank you for your hard work and for coming forward and addressing some of our concerns, doing the best you can to make sure that San Fernando is a priority. We usually aren't, but you guys are beating the drum and making sure we're a priority. I am obviously one of the youngest council members, so I have received my second vaccine. And I am respecting everyone in San Fernando by wearing my mask and following protocol. I am not that cocky you think I could not transfer the virus to someone else. And that's something we all have to remember and to continue to, wash our hands and be very concerned about that social distancing. As a matter of fact, Councilmember Pacheco is here, but he's in another room. And I'm really grateful that we're keeping each other safe. So with that, I just have praise for all the staff, and I want to thank you all and for the council members and how we're pushing for the safety of our community. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor. And just two last things before we move on. I do have the Mission City Transit number. So anyone that may be watching right now and might need the free ride to a vaccination site, the number is 818-366-4119. Again, please feel free to share that with everyone. We also have it on our website and periodically put it out through social media. And I do want to thank council for your leadership. Staff, having such good feedback, it really helps us, get our job done better, because it gives us new direction to push in. So, we appreciate all the feedback we get and all that guidance. So thank you from staff to City Council. So that's all staff has in this item.
Thank you. And now we're on item 11, consideration to approve a business tax delinquent fee amnesty program for San Fernando business impacted by COVID-19 and the state of California's stay-at-home orders. Nick?
Thank you, Mayor, and I will pass this over to Finance Director Diego Ibanez to provide staff presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. This evening, staff is asking Council to consider the approval of a business tax delinquent fee amnesty program for businesses impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and the California stay-at-home orders. For the city's code, the city collects business taxes and fees as a revenue source. These fees make up the city's 5th largest revenue source and generate about $1 million per year. It represents about 7% of the general fund. The annual business license renewal process runs from December through February for businesses within city limits, as well as those outside of the city needing a business license. This would be the second time the city offers an amnesty program. The program would waive penalty fees for delinquent accounts, allow businesses owing more than $500 to enter a payment plan for up to 12 months, and the program will be in effect until December 31st, 2021. Staff is asking Council to adopt Resolution 8059 in order to implement the amnesty program. Approving the amnesty program will not affect the city's budget. This revenue stream seems to fluctuate and staff does not forecast it for normal city hall operations. Approving the amnesty program tonight will assist businesses impacted by the pandemic and be part of Council's program of local assistance for the city. That concludes staff presentations, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Councilmember Pacheco?
Thank you. Look, I stand with the small businesses. I know so many of my colleagues do too. To me, this is a little bit of a no-brainer. I feel that, San Fernando as a small city is really limited in what kind of relief we can offer to our small business community. But I think this could be meaningful. And I think, it's a common sense policy. And it's something that we should, really support. I think we're going to keep our eyes on it. We're not going to, bet the farm, so to speak. It's not, like staff said, going to be, too much of a burden on our finances or anything like that. So that being said, I think, and just to add to, our businesses, they're not looking for a handout. They want to make it just like everybody else, right? They just, could use a little help from us. They could just use a little nudge, so to speak. And I think it's something that we should offer them. So with that, I'll yield my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez?
No questions. Diego, thank you. I mean, again, to the whole city, really, for thinking about how we can really help our business community and our residents. So fully support this recommendation from Diego.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yes, I 100% support the amnesty program for the business licenses. Thank you.
And I move the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Vice Mayor seconded the motion. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Rodriguez is absent. Councilmember Pacheco?
Yes.
Councilmember Montanez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mendoza?
Yes.
Mayor Ballin?
Yes. Diego, you did such a great job. See, no questions. Keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you, Council.
Okay, thank you all very much. And now we're at item 13, presentation of recent changes to accessory dwelling unit laws statewide. Vice Mayor. Nick?
Thank you, Mayor. Deputy City Manager Tim Howe will be giving this presentation.
Mayor Ballin and council members, I am bringing up another presentation. All right, can you see my presentation? Great, thank you. This is an update on recent changes statewide to accessory dwelling unit laws. And we'll start with a bit of a primer on what are ADUs, or accessory dwelling units. They are basically living units with complete independent living facilities for one or more persons, and there are a few variations. There are detached accessory dwelling units, which are defined as separated from the primary residential living structure. There are attached, which are attached to the primary structure. There are converted existing spaces, for example, master bedrooms, attached garages, storage areas, or other similar uses or structures that are on the lot of the primary residence that are then converted into an accessory unit. And the last one, which is a new sort of official term, which is a junior accessory dwelling unit, which we abbreviate as a JADU. That's a specific type of conversion of space that is contained entirely within an existing or proposed single family residence. So that would not be a detached unit. And JADU has specific implications within state law. Here are some examples in California of recent accessory dwelling units. This is what they can look like. Why are accessory dwelling units important? Well, new policies make ADUs easier to build in California by limiting development impact fees that can be imposed and by relaxing zoning requirements. A study in 2019 by the Turner Center determining that when looking at the cost of building a unit of affordable housing, that cost in California was over $400,000. The reality is accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units can and almost always are built at a fraction of that price. And rent generated from an ADU can pay for the entire project for the property owner within a matter of years. California Government Code Section 65852.150 regulates the development of ADUs and has been revised several times in recent years, and we'll go over some of those changes. Recent changes to California ADU laws, and why I bring this forward at this time and why this is timely is because over the last 2 years, the state legislature has enacted a number of changes. Some of them, the most recent ones, went into effect on January 1st of this year. The first one is AB 3182, which changed the rules so that an application for the creation of an ADU shall be deemed approved, not just subject to ministerial approval, but the project approved if the local agency has not acted on the application within 60 days. Additionally, it requires ministerial approval of an application for a building permit within a residential and mixed-use zone to create one ADU and one junior ADU per lot, meaning it's not one or the other, but it's an and, within a proposed or existing single-family dwelling if certain conditions are met. Lastly, it provides for the rental or leasing of a separate interest unit in a common interest development, notwithstanding governing documents that otherwise appear to prohibit renting or leasing of a unit, and without regard to the date of those governing documents. The second set of laws include AB 68, 881, and SB 13 from 2019. So these rules went into effect January of last year. They prohibit local agencies such as cities from including in development standards requirements for a minimum lot size to be able to develop an accessory dwelling unit. It eliminates all owner occupancy requirements by local agencies. So cities cannot have a requirement for owner occupancy for projects approved between January 1st of 2020 and January 1st of 2025. It prohibits a local agency from establishing a maximum size of an ADU of less than 800 square feet. So essentially it puts a floor on the maximum size of no less than 850 square feet or 1,000 square feet if the accessory dwelling unit contains more than one bedroom. And lastly, ADUs created through a garage conversion or conversion of a carport or covered parking area cannot require replacement of off-street parking spaces. That's kind of the mic drop on that set of rules. So some more items from that legislation. Clarifies that a local agency may identify an ADU or JADU to satisfy RHNA housing needs. It permits JADUs even where a local agency has not adopted an ordinance expressly authorizing them. And as I mentioned previously, junior accessory dwelling unit is sort of a term, a defined term created in the law. And the last time that the city of San Fernando updated its regulations, really this term hadn't been solidified into really a term of law. So our local laws, we don't have an ordinance that expressly authorizes them because they didn't really exist yet when we adopted our rules in 2017. Lastly, it allows a permitted JADU to be constructed within the walls of the proposed or existing single-family residence and eliminates the required inclusion of an existing bedroom or an interior entry into the single-family residence. The next set of laws are AB 587, 670, and 671. AB 587 created a narrow exception to the prohibition for ADUs to be sold or otherwise conveyed separately from the primary dwelling by allowing deed-restricted sales to occur if the local agency or municipality adopts an ordinance. AB 670 provides that CC&Rs, covenants, conditions, and restrictions, which would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict construction of ADUs on a lot zoned for single-family residential uses are void and unenforceable. And lastly, AB 671 requires local agencies' housing elements to include a plan that incentivizes the creation of ADUs that can offer affordable rents, meaning very low, lower, moderate income. And frequently asked questions. So a little bit, just to quickly run through this. So frequently asked question number one, should a local ordinance encourage the development of ADUs? And within your council packet, you have a ADU handbook that was developed and issued last month by the state of California Department of Housing and Community Development. So they provided some FAQs. So this is not going to be staff's. These are not my words. This is the state's words. So ask me afterwards what I really think. But the first one, should a local ordinance encourage the development of ADUs? The state says yes. So pursuant to the government code, really the intent of all these changes in recent state law is to, one, really acknowledge the severity of the existing housing crisis, and acknowledge that ADUs are meant to serve as a valuable form of housing to help meet some of that need. Therefore, the state really sees ADUs as an essential component of California's housing supply, and thus, recent law changes have intended to address barriers and streamline approval. Are ADUs allowed jurisdiction-wide? And so in the case of City of San Fernando, are ADUs allowed citywide? The answer is no. ADUs must be considered in any residential or mixed-use zone only. So zones that don't allow residential uses would not be required to allow accessory dwelling units. Question 3, can a local government apply design and development standards? The answer is yes. A local government may apply standards, including but not limited to parking, height, setback, landscape, architectural review, maximum size of a unit, of course consistent with the floors and ceilings that were established by the state of California, and standards that prevent adverse impacts potentially on historic resources. Item 4, can ADUs exceed general plan and zoning densities? Anybody have a guess to what the state says? Yes. An ADU is considered an accessory use for the purposes of calculating allowable density under general plan and zoning. Are ADUs permitted ministerially? You should know this one, but now the answer is yes. Next question, is there a minimum lot size requirement? And we mentioned this earlier, but just to refresh, the answer is no. While local governments can impose a number of different development standards, these standards shall not include minimum lot size requirements. And this is kind of a point of emphasis for the state because a number of local municipalities were in earlier attempts at appearing to meet the state requirements of having regulations that would regulate but allow accessory dwelling units. Those jurisdictions were establishing minimum lot sizes of well in excess of 10,000 square feet for a lot. Which is which basically means if you had a property that large, you probably had you probably didn't have a financial need to develop an accessory dwelling unit. Next, can minimum and maximum unit sizes be established for ADUs? And the answer is yes. Of course, subject to the floors and ceilings established by the state of California. Next question, can ADUs be exempt from parking? And I think we know the answer. The answer is yes. A local agency shall not impose ADU parking standards pursuant to the government code for accessory dwelling units located within a half a mile within walking distance of transit, or located within a historically significant district. If the unit is part of the primary residence, when on-street parking permits are required but not offered to the occupant of the ADU, and when there's a car share vehicle located within a block of the ADU. Can setbacks be required for ADUs? The answer is yes. Local agency may impose development standards such as setbacks, including front, corner, street, and alley setbacks. However, that's subject to floors and ceilings that's already established by the state. Is there a limit on the height of an accessory dwelling unit or a limit on number of stories? The answer is actually no. However, local agencies can impose height limits provided that the limit is no less than 16 feet. Can school districts charge impact fees? The answer is yes. School districts are authorized to, but are not required to. Are rental terms required? And the answer is yes. So local agencies can require that properties be used for a rental longer than 30 days. And really this is, you could consider this kind of a response to Airbnb style or, VRBO style, short-term rentals. Are there any owner occupancy requirements for ADUs? And we touched on this earlier, and the answer is no. However, and there's one specific carve-out, should a property have both an accessory dwelling unit and a junior accessory dwelling unit, then California state law requires owner occupancy on the property. And lastly, do local agencies, and this is really the purpose of the discussion here today, have to adopt an ADU ordinance? And the answer is no. Local agencies may choose not to adopt an ADU ordinance, but should a city like San Fernando choose not to adopt an updated ADU ordinance that's consistent with the current state of the ADU legislation, then any proposed ADU development would be only subject to standards set in California state ADU law. Therefore, really, the crux of the discussion today and the reason why staff has brought this forward is because if a local agency does adopt an ADU ordinance, that affords the local agency the ability to impose zoning, development, design, and other standards, of course, that are in compliance with the boundaries that have been now established by the state of California. That concludes staff's update, and ultimately staff's request at this time is happy to answer any questions. Staff would ask the question of the council whether there is interest in establishing an ad hoc committee to look at if there is an interest in developing and updating the city's ADU ordinance for that ad hoc committee to work on that effort. There's precedent for that back in 2017 when the city most recently updated its ADU ordinance. The council got an ad hoc committee established to help with that effort. That concludes staff's presentation. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, would you remove the, thank you. I'd like to say that I 100% support an ad hoc committee. I think ad hocs do a fantastic job. And if there's two council members that are interested in being on the ad hoc committee, would you let me know and we could take that vote? So
I'm interested for sure. I have lots of questions.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
You step forward. Oh, very good. I like
love
that.
this stuff.
Is there another council member interested in participating? Oh, I see Mary Mendoza, the vice mayor. It doesn't matter what the pairing is. You guys all do a wonderful job. So with that, I'm going to make a motion that we appoint council member Montanez and Vice Mayor Mendoza as the ad hoc committee on this item. So is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Rodriguez, she is absent. Councilmember Pacheco,
Yes.
Councilmember Montanez,
Yes, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Vice Mayor Mendoza,
Yes.
and Mayor Ballin.
100%. So the motion passes. Nick or Tim, I'm guessing at this point, we don't need to continue on and ask questions. The ad hoc committee will go over all the little details and come back with recommendations? Or did you
Yeah,
want to hear?
No, that's up to the council. I mean, if there are any questions, you obviously feel free to ask now. If not, we'll probably get into a lot of detail with the ad hoc because we do have, not only updates that need to be made to our existing ordinance due to state law, but obviously recommendations on what a replacement ordinance may look like. I would also encourage if any of the other council members have any, kind of baseline questions or recommendations. If you don't, if we can always, you can always just email those to Mr. Howe or myself, and we can make sure that they're discussed in the ad hoc.
Okay, if anyone has a burning question, feel free to ask that question. If not, we will entrust the ad hoc committee, and I look forward to that report from them. No burning questions, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you very
You're
much.
going to get all those questions at the ad hoc committee.
Sounds good. We can have frank conversation.
Your FAQ was a hit, apparently.
Yes, yes, it was. Okay, thank you so much. And at this time, staff communications, including commission updates. Nick?
Sure, I will start with Julian Venegas with Recreation and Community Services.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I have one update regarding the Park Wellness and Recreation Commission. They're going to meet on March 9th. 2 action items on the agenda. The first one would be selecting the new design for the Veteran Recognition Banner Program. Each year we select the new banner to be displayed, so they're going to select that. And the second one would be to form an ad hoc committee to review the mural applications as they come in and they make a recommendation to the full commission. So those are the 2 things I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. We'll go to Public Works Director Matt Baumgartner.
Yes, very quickly, just wanted to give an update on our Safe and Active Streets project. Our advisory group met on February 19th, and the main role of that group is helping us focus in on priority areas for active transportation projects stemming from the 2017 Safe and Active Streets Plan. So we got a lot of good feedback from the group, but another big part of the work they're helping us with is shaping the community outreach portion of the project and giving us guidance on that. So we did have a really good discussion for an hour and a half, and we'll probably be meeting 3 or 4 more times over this project to continue to provide guidance to the consultant team as we work forward on developing conceptual designs and estimates for biking and walking projects in the city. That's all I have.
Thank you, Matt. Police Chief Tony Viro.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance Director Diego Ibanez.
Good evening. Just 2 items. Due to technical difficulties last week, we were unable to proceed with our Measure A Town Hall. We have rescheduled that for March 22nd from 6 to 7 p.m. And at our next meeting, council meeting, we will have our mid-year review for our fiscal year 2021. And we will begin our budgeting process for fiscal year 21-22. That's all I have.
Thank you, Diego. We'll go with City Clerk Julia Fritz.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Our next Education Commission meeting on March 23rd will be the announcements of the winners for the scholarships. We have 55 applications that were submitted, which I believe is a record number of applications. Also, the Student of the Month will be brought forward to City Council at the next City Council meeting on March 15th. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Julia. Deputy City Manager Tim Howe.
2 quick announcements. The Planning and Preservation Commission will be holding its regular March meeting on Monday, March 8th. And second announcement is the department will be conducting interviews for planning interns later this week. And we are anticipating conducting first round interviews for our community preservation officer opening sometime next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I'd first, just two announcements for me. One, I do want to commend Julia. Actually, she did an excellent job getting through public comments today. It was very difficult having 25 people, call in, and there's so much that can go wrong. And I think we can all agree that your technical abilities since when we first started in the virtual environment to now have improved greatly. So kudos on running a pretty smooth meeting. There's a lot that could have gone wrong, and you actually you pulled it off. So well done.
Thank you.
I owe the rest of the staff like $40 because I may or may not have bet against you, but you forking over. And then the last thing, the mural on the children in cages that's currently that was painted by Lalo Garcia. That's currently in the right of way for parking lot 6N. It was originally scheduled to be up for about 3 months. We've sort of met that time period. He is actually discussing potentially moving it to there's another city that has interest in Northern California. So it could become kind of a rotating installation, but they haven't finalized that yet. So he graciously agreed to keep it at that location until such time that a new location is established to move that mural to. And before it leaves town, we will be sure that we have some sort of commemorative, we'll have not a grand opening, but maybe a grand ushering off, and we can be proud. We hope that makes its way to a number of cities, and we can be proud that all started here. So I just wanted to make that announcement, but I will definitely make sure to let all of council know when that time comes, and we'll have an opportunity to celebrate it. That's all from staff.
Okay, thank you very much. And at this time, general council comments, board member comments, and liaison updates. Councilmember Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I would like to heap some praise and congratulations to the women on the city council and on staff in honor of Women's History Month. In my life, I've had so many role models, including yourselves, and I feel very lucky to be able to learn and grow alongside you. And, in honor of some of my role models like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and so many others, I just wanted to spend just, a brief moment honoring and congratulating women during this historic month. And give some reverence as well. As we say in Hollywood, the future is female. So thank you again for all the inspiration. Secondly, I wanted, speaking of inspiration, I wanted to commend formally our Senator Alex Padilla. Hailing from the Northeast part, the San Fernando Valley, a San Fernando High School alum. He's been a real inspiration to young people like myself. And, obviously he's been in the Senate now for several weeks, but I thought that it might be nice to really take some time to recognize the inspiring story that he has coming from our part of town, now being a U.S. Senator in Washington, D.C. I think it's a pretty incredible story. And like I said, it's truly inspiring, and I think it gives young people, that could be me type vibe, if you will. So I spoke to Mayor Ballin and our city manager about what we might be able to do as a formal recognition of Mr. Padilla's story and his upbringing and where he comes from out here. We thought that a street sign type award, that we give similar to what we give to our retiring, employees and folks that have been a big part of the city could be nice. And I think, giving Mr. Padilla, Senator Padilla, this honor during, something like our National Night Out, if we have it, would be really nice. And so, we'll put our heads down and hammer out some details for the broader council to, kind of deliberate on and discuss. But again, I just want to take a moment to really recognize his own journey. And I really wish him the best in representing, California, but also the interests of LA County and, San Fernando Valley and these neighborhoods and barrios that he comes from, that we come from. And it's just so nice to see that representation in DC. We have some important SCAG meetings coming up, and I should have some further updates for the council. I believe we have some Green City ad hocs coming up as well. I'm really looking forward to continuing the hard work that we do. And again, one more thanks to all the staff for the great meeting and my council colleagues. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all next time.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah, I love the idea of like recognizing Alex because, and a little fact, his first campaign in 1998, 99, we were in the same office. He was doing his campaign when he first got elected and his office was in San Fernando. So Alex got elected by doing his work here in San Fernando. And so I think it would be cool because I think, he holds a special place obviously for us to just do something to recognize him and where he's gotten. So I think that'd be great. And he'll tell you those stories, right, of just coming in and raising money and making phone calls and doing everything out of our little town. So it's pretty cool. And then yes, on the ad hocs, Vice Mayor Mendoza and I have actually on the pension obligation bonds. Lots of interviews, as she mentioned earlier, but really great selection of firms that have applied. So Nick and Diego, really good job in working with Julio and others to attract top-notch firms to work with us. So I feel confident that as we continue doing these interviews, we will select a top-rated, top-notch firm to work with us on options for what we do with our pension obligations. So really good job to the ad hoc and the team members working with us on the ad hoc. So we have more interviews, so we will come back to the council once we have clearly finished the interviews and discuss options for who our underwriter can be. And the other thing too on our ad hoc that the vice mayor and I also sit on the visioning, so and resilience work. We have gone through a first round of looking at all of our strategic goals. And so we've had some very detailed conversations and putting those together. And we hope very soon to be able to come back to the council with those recommendations that are based on clearly a lot of conversations the councils have that you've been having for a few years and some of the thoughts too that new council members are bringing. But I think it's really going to help us define priorities for our budget. So we should probably in the next council meeting or so be able to come back with recommendations on the work that we're doing there as well.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Last meeting, I reported that I had a San Fernando Valley COG meeting. And so they had a special meeting on February 12th. At this meeting, it was held for us to vote on a recommendation from Metro staff. The motion approved was San Fernando Valley COG concurred with the Metro staff's recommendation. The committee approved the use of San Fernando Valley sub-regional funds to complete the I-15 North project in Burbank, which is the freeway, the overpass that they've been dealing with that for quite some time and hasn't been completed. The project's been going on for years and hasn't been completed due to the lack of funds. Metro recommended the amount to complete the project was $73.2 million. The approval also includes a request to incorporate some provisions in the agreement with Caltrans. And part of it is to report back to San Fernando Valley COG. I'm just going to really condense them a lot. Require Caltrans to provide a minimum payment and require repayment reporting and accounting twice yearly to the Metro Board and San Fernando Valley COG. On February 17th, I had the Los Angeles County Library Commission meeting. And, you know, I'm really amazed at the work that our library, LA County libraries are doing. They're doing contact tracing. Aside from the library duties, they've been doing contact tracing, food distributions, COVID pods as well. And some of them are now starting to go back to their offices, but they're still working out there within our community. And, you know, I applaud them for the work that they're doing. There's also a lot of work that services that they're providing for the communities. And I'll forward you an email that includes the PowerPoint presentations and links to all the different programs that they offer. They have a program even for Ready Work. It's called Ready Work for those that need to get some new skills to get a job because maybe they lost it due to COVID. And these are all online things and just what they're, you know, the programs that they have. So I think hopefully you'll be able to share them with your constituents or your contacts. I mean, all over LA County, because it is important information and very helpful for our families that are in need, especially right now with the kids that are being home, you know, doing Zoom class time. And as Councilmember Montañez said, our meetings were great. And, you know, I'm really excited for the work we're doing. We've made a lot of progress and I hope, you know, you're happy with what we present to you at the end. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm convinced I'm going to be happy. So I do have a question for the city clerk. What's the status of the recruitment for your deputy city clerk?
Thank you, Mayor Ballin. The status currently is 9 interviews are being set up for the first oral board. The oral board is made up of 3 outside representatives. My mentor, city clerk, she's a city clerk of the city of Moore Park. Another individual that also what I worked very closely with. So all these people will know the job description, and know me as well to be able to get a good fit as well with the candidates that they're interviewing. This is all happening on March 9th.
Well, thank you very much. We're looking forward to an update on March 15th. Yes. And the update for the Metropolitan Water District Board, after many, many years, I am officially off the board. Once Adan gets sworn in, which I would like to see that happen this week, he is going to be a true asset to our city. And people forget that Yaz was our representative and he lived in Orange County as well. And the first representative on the Med board was the attorney that negotiated the water rights for us. And he did not live in the city of San Fernando. So why not get the best, right? And to me, Adan Ortega, and I know that Councilmember Montanez feels the same way, is the best. So I'm very proud of our decision tonight. And I'm really proud that 3 women, we know that he's going to fight for the women at Metropolitan as well as for all the employees. We know that about Adan. And with that,
and Mayor, if you don't
yes.
mind, before we adjourn, I just wanted, I'd be remiss if I forgot to mention, actually Councilmember Rodriguez talked to me earlier this week that she had been in contact with the Cesar Chavez Committee, who would like to donate and install a plaque to be at the Cesar Chavez Memorial on San Fernando Road, or yeah, it's on Truman. And the corner of Truman there, so in Wolfskill. So that will be an item at the next city council meeting. We'll be accepting that plaque. I guess it would always meant to be part of that memorial, but for some reason it was never installed. So I just do want to give the heads up that, you know, that was an announcement that she had wanted to make tonight, but, you know, she wasn't able to be out with us because she was ill.
Okay, I really appreciate that. And Richard, it's good seeing you. We didn't hear much from you today, but it is good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. It feels like it's been too long, but we'll catch up. I need to catch up with a lot of you actually. So.
And it's terrible with all of you here at city chambers, at council chambers. So looking forward to when we can all come together. And with that, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Good night.